call the meeting to order. I'll start by asking absent members who are appearing remotely to identify themselves. So Adrian.
Hi, this is Adrian Gill, District 1. I'm going to stay off camera because I am sick and nobody wants to see me, but I'm here.
Ben?
I'm Ben Doyle, District 1. I'm not sure that anybody wants to see me either, but I'm keeping my camera on.
And Jim?
Jim Sheridan, District 3. Everybody's used to seeing me this way now.
Okay, thank you. I'll say a word about meeting logistics and remote introductions. If you're joining remotely, please change your name to your first and last name so we know who we're talking to. Anyone who speaks must, or we ask you to start by stating your name and where you live. And we ask you to keep your comments or questions under 3 minutes. If you're speaking about a specific agenda item, please keep your comments germane to that topic. If you wish to speak, you must be called on by the mayor. And once you're called on, you may make a statement or ask questions. But if you have multiple observations, please just ask them all at one time. If you speak out of turn, discuss non-germane topics, go on too long, etc., you may be interrupted and asked to adjust your comments or behavior. We've had a number of discussions at recent meetings about our mutual desire to have our meetings be productive and responsible and respectful. And so I'm going to start by reading this statement. The City Council affirms its shared commitment to a respectful and professional environment. We do not support negative or personal comments directed at city staff or department heads. We ask that all remarks remain focused on issues, policies, and solutions. This expectation supports productive dialogue and reflects our respect and appreciation for those who serve our community. And with that, I will ask members if you approve the agenda as is. Not seeing any dissent, we'll proceed. Consider the agenda approved. It's now time for general business and appearances. This is an opportunity for any member of the public to address the council on any topic that is not on tonight's agenda. Since we immediately following that have a discussion of how we'll handle public comment and agenda management in the future, I'll ask people to hold the comments on that topic until we get to that item on the agenda. But for now, Dave Bellini, I think your hand is up first.
Yes, Dave Bellini, District 3.
And please come up to the table just so the mic picks you up.
Oh, okay. Dave Bellini, District 3. Anybody from Public Works here? I just want to shout out to Public Works. You guys did a great job on Public Street. Thank you. And I see you all hole patching the potholes. It's appreciated. You guys are seen. I think the whole community thinks it's great. The roads are better this year than they were last year. And I know that was something, Mr. Mayor, that you said a lot of people were interested in. And I think the results
Peter Kelman.
Peter Kelman, Montpelier. I earlier sent a question about how a member of the public can request that something be moved from the consent agenda, but I didn't get a response. So, but Jack, you got my email, did you not?
Yeah, did you get the email I just sent you back?
Well, if you just sent it, I don't, but.
Okay. The answer is,
yeah.
Your questions were, how would somebody get something taken off the consent agenda? Mostly. And what I would say is that any council member can take something off the consent agenda at the time the consent agenda is called, although we prefer to know about it in advance. So, or that, making that request is timely under general business and appearances.
Okay, well, I would like you to take the item E, Consulting Services Finance Director, off the consent agenda so that members of the public could weigh in on that, not on the contract itself, but the idea of spending $10,000 to do a partial consulting job on a job which is likely to draw from people who already live in Vermont, not from people from out of state. So I'd like to have somebody, one of the counselors, move to take that off the consent agenda.
Okay, thanks, Peter. Is there anyone else online who'd like to be heard? Anybody else in the room who'd like to be heard? Okay,
I'll move to take it off, Jack.
okay, thanks, Jim. We'll take item E off the consent agenda. Okay, yes, come on up to the table.
Hi, I'm Carl Frick, working for the city of Montpelier, Green Mountain Cemetery. I understand that they're a little short-staffed over at DPW. Obviously, I know some of the sidewalks aren't getting done as soon as they should be. I did the job for 6 years, and there was some sort of disagreement amongst management, which now prohibits me from doing that. I'm throwing my name in the hat again. Obviously, they need help. I talked to the guys over there. None of them have an issue with me coming over and doing the job. And they're wondering why I'm not doing the job. So I'm just here asking if, something could happen in that regards.
Okay, thanks. You can figure that the city manager will likely follow up and determine what to do. Thank you. Anybody else in the room would like to be heard? Okay. Next up, we have the proposal for agenda management and how we will handle public comment. Ben, do you want to start us off on this? Because you brought this proposal to the council?
Sure, I'm happy to. And, I just want to respond to one of Peter's other questions. I would just anticipate that if this item passes, that it would not take effect until our next city council meeting. So the people that anticipated coming later in the meeting to talk on items on the agenda could do so. So, yeah, I would just say that, I've heard repeatedly from constituents that the structure and tone of our meetings prevents robust participation from the community. And I think we've all talked about that, talked about the tone of our meeting, the length of our meetings. And I think it's worth trying a new approach, which is why I'm suggesting that we pilot this approach of having public comment on any topic, whether it's on the agenda or not, at the beginning of the meeting, and then also providing an additional opportunity at the end of the meeting before council reports for people if they want to comment on something that they heard in the meeting. I think that this meets the expectation of the public to both comment on the work of the council, to witness the work of the council, but also the expectation that we do our work, and that's what these meetings are ultimately about. So I think trying for 6 months, measuring it to see if it's successful in terms of, does it meet its goal of increasing public participation in our meetings? I think we can quantify that and reassess it in 6 months. I have a motion that I'm happy to read. Jack, if that's, the next step, and then we can have further discussion or however you'd like to proceed.
Sure, that would be in order.
Great. So sorry, it's a little bit lengthy, but here it is. I move that the city council shall provide the opportunity for public comment on any issue at the very beginning of a council meeting during general business and appearances, as well as at the end of the meeting prior to council reports. Public comment on individual agenda items during the course of the meeting will not be taken. This change in practice shall be piloted for 6 months and evaluated using the following metrics. 1, has the change increased public participation, i.e. higher numbers of individuals commenting at council meetings? 2, are city council meetings shorter, i.e. regularly ending before 10 p.m. And 3, is there an increased sense of meeting effectiveness as measured by a council self-evaluation conducted before and after the 6-month pilot? At the conclusion of the pilot period, the council shall consider the data and determine whether to return to the current practice or make the proposed change.
Thank you.
Could you email that?
It's in the
packet.
memo.
Oh, it's in the packet.
Yeah.
Never mind.
All right. Folks,
I will second.
All right, thank you. Folks, is there any comment from the public in the room? And then we'll get to, okay. Peter, oh, see a couple of people in the room. Thomas Weiss, I think you might be first.
Good evening. I am Thomas Weiss, a resident of District 2. My comments follow the cover sheet, which is found on pages 91 and 92 of the agenda packet. First item, expenditure required is listed as none. Actually, staff time will be required in order to create the metrics needed to determine the success or failure of the proposed trial. This will reduce the time available for those staff members to handle their other duties. Background information suggests a more formalized framework. Clarify when and how members of the public may speak. This is already clear at the beginning for non-agenda items and during the discussions of specific agenda items. Establish consistent time limits and procedures. I point out the time limits apply to the council as well as to members of the public. Ensure that all speakers are treated equitably. Any failure here is on the counselors or those counselors that do not provide equitable treatment. Provide clear tools for managing high volume or sensitive comment periods. The proposed motion does not require the development of clear tools. Align the city's practice with available guidance and common standards. I've not researched this, so I'm not making comment on it. I find that the proposed motion fails to achieve the more formalized framework. The motion, public comment on individual items during the course of the meeting will not be taken. Often, I have more to say than the allowed time. Listening to the discussion enables me to limit my comments to those most relevant to the discussion. Thus, it is necessary that public comments be allowed during each agenda item and before the council's decision. Comments at the end of the meeting or after a decision do not provide the required reasonable opportunity to express an opinion. Comments on the metrics. Has the change increased public participation? This requires tabulating public participation before and during the proposed trial. I haven't seen anything about a tabulation on public participation beforehand. Second, are city council meetings shorter? I analyzed the times in your most recent council meeting, December 17. The meeting ended at 10:38. This is what I found. Members of the public spoke 13 times during the non-appearances portion of the meeting, a total of 28 minutes. This is not an excessive time for the public's reasonable opportunity to express its opinion. The sum of the durations on the agenda of December 17 was 4.5 hours, calling for an end time of 11 p.m. It is inappropriate to blame public comment for causing the meeting to go past 10 p.m. Is there an increased sense of meeting effectiveness? This requires a self-evaluation form or questionnaire to be developed before the start of the pilot. In summary, my recommendation is for the council to disapprove the recommended motion. Instead, I suggest that the council proceed with the following. Retain the public comments at appearances during each agenda item. Provide clear tools for managing high volume or sensitive comment periods. Provide an agenda start time for each item. Provide on the agenda start times for each item. Have one counselor monitor time. When the discussion is approaching its time limit, the time monitor will ask how the council wants to proceed. Have each counselor be responsible for adhering to the policy adopted at the December 10th meeting, which I believe is what you just read at the beginning of this meeting. My recommendation addresses the elements of the more formalized framework.
Thank you, Thomas.
The motion does not. Thank you.
I think we gave you, thank you so much. Someone else was, Dave, why don't you, the person behind you, and then Dave? Sorry, I don't have your name.
Thank you and good evening. My name is Jen Duggan and I live in the Park West neighborhood in District 1. I would like to express my strong support for Councillor Doyle's proposal to improve the process for receiving public comment at these meetings. Predictable and meaningful public comment opportunities are critical to a healthy democracy, and they ensure that residents have a direct voice in the decisions that affect their daily lives, while also strengthening accountability and transparency of all of our elected officials. Unfortunately, the City Council's current process for public comment is a significant barrier for both public participation as well as the ability of the council to conduct board business on behalf of residents. As it stands now, it's incredibly difficult for members of the public to provide comments at meetings. It's unpredictable as to when public comment on a particular item will be taken, and City Council meetings often stretch late into the night. For example, at the last meeting where this was discussed, this particular issue did not come up for public comment until after 10 p.m. And most folks are just not able to spend hours waiting to share their perspectives on agenda items. And really what that means is that they are effectively shut out from participation altogether. At the same time, the current process means that council business is constantly interrupted by just a small number of individuals. So it really is a lose-lose scenario for Montpelier residents. Councillor Doyle's proposal to accept public comment on any item for a defined period at the beginning and then again at the end of the meeting will align with the public comment procedures already in place at our school board, as well as other city councils across the region. These existing models have demonstrated that structured, predictable opportunities for public engagement don't diminish access or reduce the value of community input. I believe that providing this kind of clear and orderly process for public comment will enable more thoughtful participation. It will reduce confusion and frustration for residents. And at the same time, it will support the council in maintaining a productive meeting environment. And I would strongly urge the council to adopt Councillor Doyle's proposal. Thank you for your commitment to fostering open government and our participation and all that you do on behalf of Montpelier residents.
Thank you. Dave.
Hello, I'm Dave Bellini, longtime resident of Montpelier. Hi, everybody. I'm not sure I understand Councillor Doyle's proposal fully. Took me a long time just to figure out when to speak, Jack. I got it down now. I don't see anything wrong with what you guys are doing. I think if you're going to bring up something on the agenda, I like to hear the council speak first. And a lot of times you have a presenter, and that's where I get information. If I speak at the beginning of the meeting, I can't make an informed comment as much as I can make an informed comment after listening to the dialogue between the councilors and the testimony of your guests that come here to speak. Now, I've been in government my entire work life, so I understand a lot of things. I can also read between the lines, Mr. Mayor, and I'm not going to say it. But I think maybe that some people are uncomfortable with certain situations and certain speakers. I don't think that's the norm. I think that's the exception. And I think if councilors are uncomfortable with public comment or people challenging their ideas and people objecting, then you must rethink why you would want to take an elected public position in government. That's it. That's your father. He's a really good guy, Chris.
Okay, thanks. Yes, sir.
I'm Adam Sargent. I live in District 1, and I just wanted to speak on in support of Councillor Doyle's proposal. I think I'm a teacher and I've gone to lots of school board meetings, and school board meetings start with open comment, and then the school board gets down to business. And there's other times to like interact at the end as well with school board members. I think it's a real efficient way to get things done. I've gone to a lot of school board meetings here in Montpelier and also in Harwood where I teach. So I think this is a really reasonable proposal. I'm a busy person and I've got kids. I've got 2 kids. Like I've got to go pick up my daughter from soccer practice here at 7 o'clock. I can't hang around at a meeting for 3 or 4 hours to make comment, but I can come at the beginning and make comment, or I can watch on Zoom and make a comment at the end. So I just think it's more equitable if you adopt Councillor Doyle's proposal. Thank you.
Thanks. I just remembered why I recognize you. Used to play softball together.
Right. Yeah.
Thanks. Anybody else in the room? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Sarah DeFelice and I'm a business owner here in Montpelier. I also support this agenda item. And for example, we're here to speak on the local option tax, and not knowing when it's going to come up or how long it's going to be really makes it hard for bedtimes or dinner. And it would be much easier for me to know that I can come at the beginning, say what we want to say to represent businesses, rather than am I going to be here till 9 or 10? And I respect that you guys are all here until 9 or 10, but that predictability is really helpful.
Thanks. Pete, I think I said, Peter Kelman. You're muted. Peter, can you hear me saying that you're muted?
Okay.
There we
Can you
go.
hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. This motion is flawed in almost every sense. It will not solve any of the actual problems of the city council meetings, including some of the ones that people who are in favor of it just said that you don't need to solve those problems with this approach. In fact, this ill-conceived and undemocratic proposal is likely to worsen the issues, leading to even less public engagement, greater alienation from local government, and even more heated confrontations with Steve Whitaker. Importantly, the idea that this would be a 6-month pilot that would be evaluated with the metrics proposed is totally lacking in validity and is naive at best. I think Thomas actually said most of what I'm going to say, but I'll just point out that commenting at city council meetings is a totally inadequate indicator of public participation. Individuals participate in civic affairs in all sorts of ways other than speaking at meetings. Moreover, determining an increase in the numbers of individuals making comments presumes an accurate record of how many people generally commented before the change will have been made. I strongly doubt that such base comparison data exists or could be reconstructed for minutes. So that's completely an invalid measure. As for shorter city council meetings, these may be achieved as a result of any number of other possible changes in council procedures, some of which I've suggested, some of which Thomas suggested, and some of those you could extract from the people who just asked for predictability. So even if meetings were to become generally shorter, how could the cause of this possibly be established as being the move as to when public comments are allowed? And there's nothing wrong with having public comments at the beginning and at the end to accommodate people who need that. Finally, the very idea of an increased sense of meeting effectiveness as measured by a council's self-evaluation is not only subjective in the extreme, but it also invites self-deluded justification. Montpelier is fortunate to have a number of pretty darn smart and well-informed residents whose ideas and comments about issues have proven to be well worth hearing when made in the context of their being considered by council. Consider then what may be lost as a result of decontextualizing public comments by moving them exclusively to the beginning and the end, not when things are being discussed. I urge you to abandon this particular proposal and find other more effective, more democratic ways to address all of the real problems, including all of those that Ben's people who he got to come and testify today offered. perfectly reasonable, but you don't need this heavy-handed thing of denying the ability, as Dave Bellini just said, when it's being discussed, that's when you want to be able to talk, not before or after. Some people want to do before or after, fine. I personally like to
Thanks, Peter.
listen and hear what people say. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Christine Zaki.
Hi, thank you so much for taking the time to hear comment on this. I am here specifically to support Councillor Doyle's proposal. This is an incredibly reasonable proposal to address the current behaviors and environment that exists at city council meetings that are simply not conducive to the sort of productive work that community members expect from our city council. Community members have a myriad of ways to engage with their elected officials. They can contact them by phone, by email. They can participate in listening sessions. They can, with this policy, participate both at the beginning and at the end of meetings. City council has a lot of work to do. And this is not a proposal that is some radical proposal designed to quash democracy. Rather, this is an incredibly reasonable proposal that many other bodies have adopted in order to develop a productive working environment and promote civil engagement. The other strategy case that I want to make here is that as a community member, given the challenges that our city is facing right now, I have a pretty high bar for what I expect my elected officials to be getting done. And you need a productive work environment in which to do that. And I would really urge you to move ahead with this change in policy. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Christine. Alan.
And I successfully unmuted myself.
Okay, great.
Hi, Alan Goldman, Terrace Street, Montpelier. I appreciate the concerns and what you're trying to do. For goodness sakes, I've been going to the meetings since 1988, and it was 2017, December 9th and 23rd, when we had to first exercise this policy because there were so many questions and built up time. I think you folks frequently see me watching the meetings. I don't usually say very much, but I'm at an awful lot of the meetings. If people want to speak about their thoughts, they can always come in the beginning and share them. So I hope the people that spoke in favor of the motion absolutely realize that. There's certainly nothing wrong with that. But I find it so difficult to speak to a subject in the beginning, and then while the dialogue is happening, as Mr. Bellini said, you might learn something or want to participate. I find that is the whole essence of open meeting law. And I think if we really look at the meetings, and I've been watching quietly for hours and hours, I appreciate the breaks, Mayor, that we usually get a little after 8. We appreciate it. But I'm frequently watching till 10, 10:30. I know that people do come forward, but I don't think that that is the key disruption. As one of the other gentlemen had mentioned, Mr. Weiss, that when you quantify the time, it really is not a significant amount. And so I find it so important that we have a chance to interact when the thought is taking place. It might be something I learned from you, Mayor. There might be something I learned from your staff. There might be something I learned from one of the counselors or one of the experts that you have and you want to participate. It makes it almost impossible. And so it's my opinion, you'll see less participation. If I have to give a comment at, let's say, 6:30 or 7, and then I can't discuss it until the end of the meeting at 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night, or even 10, I'm just going to call it quits. I'm just going to say goodnight. There's no reason to stay and try to participate. I haven't spoken often, you know I haven't. So, but to not have that choice, I think would be devastating to open meeting law. And I appreciate your time. I had a long day today trying to get to Boston and back in the snowstorm, so I did not come prepared. This is just, I'm just speaking from my heart and my participation of over 40 years. Thank you, folks. And I do appreciate that you're trying hard to move forward. But I think that would be a huge, devastating blow to active participation, which is the key to learning and growth. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Alan. Tim.
Hi there, Tim Sinnott, District 1 and Planning Commissioner. And yeah, I urge our councilors to move forward and approve this proposal from Councilor Ben. Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate what others have said about the our school board meetings. There's already precedent in our town for running meetings in a very similar way. And I don't think anyone, well, not that I know of, I don't think anyone calls those meetings undemocratic. So I think that it is a different way of running a meeting and just as democratic. And I'll also reiterate what I believe it was Sarah said, that it gives people actually an opportunity to address agenda items early on in the meeting. So I suspect that Sarah will be there for some time tonight. And if she were able to speak up front and address her issue, then she is likely able to go home and maybe watch the rest on Orca Media. So yeah, I urge you all to approve the proposal. I think it's a great and reasonable idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else participating online or present who'd like to be heard? Or let's get started. Council, Jim, you've got your hand up first. Though I know Adrian did earlier, but Jim, go ahead.
Okay. First of all, I did go to a school board meeting once, and I wanted to say something. I really couldn't remember totally how I wanted to say it. I have never been back to a school board meeting, and I will never go to another school board meeting because I want to speak when they're talking about something. I don't care if people want to come early. I think we should allow people to come early and speak on an agenda item. I'm probably not going to remember everything people say. If five or six people speak before and we don't get to the agenda item for 3 hours, I'm not going to remember what any of you said. And I don't think that we're going to want to have it repeated by somebody so we know. I don't care if you want to speak at the end. I think you should be allowed to speak at the beginning, speak during the agenda item, and speak at the end. I mean, I'll stay here. I don't care. I used to stay here sometimes till 1:30 in the night in my previous time. To me, you know, I'll just stay and however long the meeting goes, I don't really care about. I don't like us doing things, making policy about one person. That's just not good ways to do things. And we all know that that's what this is about. So I'm not going to support this. I will support that we allow them to speak at the beginning, speak at the end. But I think people should be allowed to speak during the meeting when they've heard info, because if it's too long of a time, you forget what you want to say. You get tired or you get bored or you get distracted. To me, I don't have a problem with things, you know, I don't see this creating people, you know, the people I've heard to come say to support this, I've never seen you at any meetings. So, you know, saying how you are going to come by and you don't come to meetings. You came to this one because you want to support this. The people who come to meetings are the ones that say they don't support this. We don't have hardly anybody come to our meetings. Back when I was on the council many years ago, we'd have 20 to 30 people who came to every meeting. We maybe have 5 or 6. It's mostly staff or people whose committee is going to be talked about that night. So I'll support allowing them to talk in the beginning and the end, but I'm not going to support that they can't talk during the agenda item. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Folks, anyone else?
My hand's raised.
Oh, good. Thanks, Adrian.
Yeah, sorry, anyway, I'm back. So I support this. I think change is important to, look at and try different things. I just want to make sure that we're very clear about what is the problem that we're trying to solve, right? Are we trying to solve for lack of public participation? Are we trying to solve for long meetings? Are we trying to solve for unruly, lengthy folks talking and agenda items? And so I know Ben and I talked briefly about this last week, but not too much in depth. I just want to be very clear that, if we do, say we want people to come in and have this time in the beginning of the meeting, which I think is really important because, right, it's like, if you allow people to do it, will you have more participation, right? I think we need to give people that option. I think we don't have a lot of public participation because no one wants to sit for their agenda item for 4 hours. Like, it's just completely unrealistic. So I don't know. In my personal opinion, I think we should try it. I think we should test it. I think we should have some type of communications campaign to say, hey, we are allowing, anyone to come in the beginning of the meeting to talk. You can always email your counselor to get background information. We're always here to provide any type of research, any type of presentation materials that are coming so that you're more prepared to talk. I mean, that's our job. And so we are here to help the public be prepared for public comment. And I think having it in the beginning and the end, I think is a good test. Maybe not 6 months, maybe we try 3 months. Or have a check-in at 3 months. Say, is this working? Is this not working? How can we do better? Just so that we're constantly evaluating these metrics and seeing if it's working. And if it's not, then we go back to the drawing board to figure out another way. But I think it's worth trying and just seeing if we achieve what we set out to achieve by making this change. So I just want to make sure we're very clear about that.
Thanks, Adrian. Palin.
Yeah, thank you. So I will support this suggestion because one of the city councilors wanna make a change and try to improve things. And I respect that. Since it is a limited period of time, it's a test trial. I think it will not hurt anyone. And I kept hearing participation from different public members. But I didn't hear speaking is the must for participation or making oral contribution. So maybe we can create another system. I don't know, maybe chat or some kind of forum while we are discussing the agenda items. People who are online or in the meeting, they can just type their ideas and we can see them. So it's a participation. And also if we go and accept the 6-month trial period, I think it will be great to see the evaluation every 2 months. So we can say, okay, is it working? Is it not working? Do we have to make any change or make things different? Or I was thinking the same thing, just Adrian suggested, maybe try it for 3 months. So I will suggest 3 things. Just come up with a system. People, if cannot speak for specific agenda item during the discussion, they can type or they can send their ideas. So they will be still participating. Let's have evaluation every 2 months if we are trying this proposal for 6 months. Or we can just change the time period and try it for 3 months. But I think it's a good start to change things. Thank you.
Thanks, Palin. Carrie.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm in favor of this as well. And I don't know that I necessarily started there originally, because I've always really appreciated the openness that we have in our city council meetings and the ability for people to comment on every agenda item. And I think that all the arguments that we're hearing for increased participation are really, really resonating with me. And I think that we're hear from people tonight who we haven't heard from before, or we haven't heard much from before. I think that kind of proves the point that we need a different way to have some public participation, that there may be people staying away who otherwise would come. So I am in favor of giving this a try. I like the way it's time limited, and I like that we're going to have some way to evaluate whether it's doing what we want to do or not. I would say that 6 months is a good amount of time. I think it will take a little bit of time for people to kind of learn about this process and get used to it. And I think I agree with, I think Adrian said some public education would be good. So people who, are right now thinking, oh, why would I want to go to that meeting? And I don't think that will happen quickly. I think that could take a little bit of time. And then I also just want to point out that as we're measuring, we can measure this pretty easily. This metric is a pretty easy one to measure because we have minutes from all our previous meetings that tell us about how many people commented. And so I don't think that's a heavy lift. And so I'm in favor of giving it a try. And I really appreciate everybody who has emailed me about it. I've heard from a lot of people who aren't here tonight also. And I really appreciate everyone who's kind of taken the time to comment and be part of this, even when you typically haven't been before. It's very helpful.
Thanks, Gary. So
I'm willing to give this a try as well. And really, not really because I think it's going to shorten meetings. I think there are a lot of other ways to get meeting times under control. I don't think this will have that much of an effect, but I think it will give people, some people, better access. I think it's a challenge for the council because we're accustomed to hearing comments during an agenda item in the immediacy of the discussion. But I receive a lot of input before meetings via email, and I need to keep track of those now. So we just have to come up with ways to make sure that we can keep track of comments that are made prior to this, at the early part of the meeting, so that when the item comes up for discussion, those are foremost in our minds. But I think a trial period of 6 months is reasonable, and I think we ought to pay close attention so that we really can measure progress.
I think so. Any other council members have anything to add? I have a couple of thoughts, but I don't want to interfere with anyone else who wants to speak. I can say that I've always thought that the way we do these have conducted public comment has been valuable. I've always appreciated having public comment during the discussion of the agenda items, but for the reasons that people have said, that it's contextual, it enables people to frame their comments to things they've heard in the discussion. On the other hand, I've certainly heard from people who say that they just don't have the patience or the endurance or whatever it takes to come to a meeting, to sit here for a long time, to listen to what is sometimes challenging and infuriating to hear, in order to make a point that they might only take 2 minutes to make. And so I think it's worth a try. A couple of things I want to point out is the open meetings law. What the open meetings law requires, I value public comment, but what the open meetings law requires is give the public a reasonable opportunity to express its opinion, subject to reasonable rules established by the chair. And I think either the current process we have now or the proposed process continues, either way, would provide a reasonable opportunity to be heard. And the other thing, the other part of that same statute, same section, is that one of the things that's required to be in the minutes is a listing of all other active participants in the meeting. So every meeting that we have, the clerk's minutes include every member of the public who spoke. So we can track that before and after. And I think that will be one of the standards that we'll be looking at. Anybody? Yes, Carrie.
Yeah, I forgot about before, but our overall procedures put a lot of discretion in the hand of whoever's running the meeting. And this doesn't change that. And so I don't, that's not my intention. This doesn't change that. So that if there is some particular issue that comes up where it's really clear that we, for whatever reason, need to, within a certain meeting, change that, adapt to a certain situation, the chair running the meeting has the discretion to be able to do that. And just like they do now. And so I think that helps to keep us from getting locked into something if it's not working in any particular night.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Yeah.
So, can we add my suggestions to the motion, or I can just like work with the city staff if we approve the motion? Like, I want to see some kind of system still getting public comment during the agenda item discussion, not maybe oral presentation, but somehow. So I don't want to stop their participation during our discussion, and also measuring the success of this trial every 2 months, not at the end of the.
I think with regard to your first topic, I think that's an administrative thing that you can talk to staff about. With regard to your second point about measuring every 2 months, that seems more like an amendment to me. And so if you wanted to amend the motion to include that provision, this would be the time to do that.
Okay, so I want to amend the motion by adding measuring the success of this method every 2 months during the 6-month trial time.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Is there any discussion of this proposed amendment? So.
Measure it how? Just in terms of participation or the self-evaluation aspect of this? Or?
I am expecting to see measurements from Ben because he mentioned measuring it. So whatever he is thinking, I just want to use it every 2 months instead of
sooner than the 6-month period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we need to change something, I'm sorry, if we need to change something, we can change it more quickly instead of waiting for 6 months. If something is working, we can do it more. If something is not working, we can just like change it. So that's the idea behind that amendment. Sorry, Ben.
Okay, Ben.
No, I see Jim had his hand up before. I'm happy to comment, but let Jim go first, please.
Okay, go ahead, Jim. Sorry.
I'm not sure how we're going to have time to look at comments that are emailed to us while the agenda item's still going. I mean, maybe it's because I'm old and I can't chew gum and walk at the same time anymore, but if I'm listening to what is going on in the agenda item, I'm not going to be able to read comments that have been put in. What if there's like 7 or 8 comments? I mean, I don't see how, I see that as slowing down the meeting more. I mean, because I was thinking, well, maybe I could ask the city clerk to read what the people said when they came up, because I can't remember what some of them said. But that just slows it. So I don't know how you're going to do this, Palin, without it being really disruptive, to be honest with you.
Thanks, Jim. What I would say is that's not part of this motion. That's something that she's going to talk about with staff. But
well, I just wanted to make comments on that.
Got it. I appreciate that. Ben.
Yeah, I want to say we haven't really articulated, who's going to be doing the measuring, right? And I do think it's quantifiable in the sense of like we can go back through the minutes for the previous 6 months, right, and actually just see how many people spoke at like our typical city council meeting and just compare that I'm happy. I think Adrian, I don't want to volunteer you, but I think we had talked about like working on some metrics together. I'm happy to dig through the minutes. If somebody wants to help, I don't want to put that on an additional burden on staff to do that work. But whatever, I think we just need to be clear about how we're going to measure that. And I think we can start that at the next meeting. Palin, as to your motion or your amendment, I appreciate it. I think we need to give this 6 months. I think that is, as somebody else said, like a reasonable amount of time to see if this is working. And so I think it's fine to measure it every 2 months, but I would be reluctant to measure it in the sense of like, in 2 months, we've determined that the exact number of people are still coming to the meeting, then we should stop doing this. I really think we should commit to 6 months to doing it. So, yeah, I guess I would say like, I have no problem measuring it every 2 months. I just would like us to commit to 6 months for this pilot.
Thanks, Ben. Carrie.
Yeah, I'm in a similar place where I think it will be really interesting. I'm definitely going to be paying attention every month as we go along to see what's happening. And if we want to kind of formally measure it every 2 months, I don't think that's enough time to really have information to make decisions on. So I think, as Ben said, I would like us to commit to 6 months to do this. And then we decide at the end of 6 months, what do we want to do next? Doesn't mean that we can't be looking at it all along the way and thinking about it, which I know we all will be doing anyway. So that's why I'm not in favor of the amendment, even though I am in favor of the ongoing evaluation. I think that's a really good idea.
John.
Yeah, I just thought it's worth adding to the discussion. This isn't, from my perspective, it's neither here nor there, but all the minutes do, yeah, we always list who spoke from what members of the public, but there is no typical amount. It's all over the map. There's no rhyme or reason to it, really. So that just put that out there, because I heard somebody say, see what the typical amount is compared to what it's been, and I think you'll find there isn't one.
Okay, so I understand if you don't want to approve the amendment, I'm okay with it. And I will create my own measurement system and I will share the data every 2 months with everyone. And it is very doable because I'm not asking to change the trial time. It is still 6 months. I am just like asking, just measure and check if it is working or not more frequently. So again, when we vote for the amendment, I'm okay if it is not approved, but I will share my unofficial measurement with everyone every 2 months.
Adrian.
So maybe me, Palin, and Ben can work together to come up with those metrics, because even if it's not official, I think we should still have like a check-in, right? Like that's how I pictured it in my mind. Like just a check-in, 2 months in my mind. So we had it on the agenda. So because sometimes we forget. And so we don't forget about it. But the 6 months in my mind was always still there. So it was just a check-in for us, just to kind of, get a temperature check. How's it going? So it wasn't like a formal, like, oh, after 2 months, we're not going to do this. Like that is not how I was thinking at all. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Thanks. Are we ready to vote on the amendment? The amendment is to add a every 2 month check-in or evaluation during the 6 month period. And I'll call the roll. Adrian?
Yes.
Ben?
No.
Carrie?
No.
Jim? Jim, are you voting?
For the
Sorry, yes.
Okay. Palin?
Yes.
Sal?
No, but I'm anxious to see your system.
Okay. The votes are tied, so the amendment does not pass. The motion does not pass. Before we move to the motion to vote on the main motion, I have a question that maybe someone who supports this can explain to me, and that is, what is the purpose and function of the public comment period at the end of the meeting?
To be honest, I included that because politics is the art of compromise, and Palin mentioned it last meeting. I think it doesn't hurt, right? I think it's great if people see something in the meeting that they want to comment on the end. I think that's fine. And I also just, maybe Jack, if I could just take a second, I don't want to be disingenuous about this. Like, the primary reason for this is to increase participation, but I also want to really do acknowledge that I think we do have some voices in our community that kind of abuse the public comment process in terms of not criticizing us and our policy decisions. But I think that that's entirely appropriate and frankly welcome it. What I really worry about is just the kind of repeated opportunity to have a corrosive tone that denigrates our staff and makes this work difficult. And, that's what also turns people away from public participation. It's not just that they're waiting until 10:30 at night. It's that they're sitting there for 3 hours listening to certain people comment on every single item and essentially say the same thing, which is that this city is in the dumps. And, I think we just need to take a breather and stop for 6 months and reassess.
Thanks, Ben.
So I like to have something at the end of the meeting. That's why I suggested to create opportunity for people, if they miss the beginning of the meeting, then they can still be part of it.
Gotcha.
So just to create more opportunity for the participation, not to change maybe our votes and all the things we talk about. Like, most of the time we are coming to the meeting already talking with different people, and we have some kind of informed decision. So that's why at the end of the meeting, we'll not take any time participation, but also giving some other opportunity for people who want to contribute.
Thanks. Yeah.
I wanted to thank Ben for his comments. The abuse of staff that we withstand at these meetings it's really corrosive to the effectiveness of these meetings, and steps that we can take to kind of reduce that are really valuable. So thank you, Ben.
Thanks, Chris. Ready to vote on the motion? Again, I'll call the roll. Adrian?
Yes.
Ben?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Jim?
No.
Helen?
Yes.
Sal?
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries, and we will put this into effect at our next meeting. Thanks, folks. Next up, we have reappointment to the Historic Preservation Commission. And is there someone out there looking to come in to talk about? Maybe not. No, we're going to do that at the end. Yeah. No, thanks. That's one of the things we're doing to try to front load the more interesting parts of the meeting. We'll just see how it goes. Yeah. So we have a application from Lindsay Chozinska to be reappointed to the Historic Preservation Commission. Lindsay, if you're here either online or in person, we'd love to hear from you. I'm not seeing anyone. Is there a motion?
You're on mute.
Thanks. I would love to move this reappointment for Lindsay Chozinski to be reappointed to the Montpelier Historic Preservation Commission.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I would just say historic preservation is my day job. Eric Gilbertson is a colleague and good friend who chairs the commission, who speaks very highly of Lindsay, and just really appreciate those Montpelier residents that are working to preserve our historic resources. They make our town really special.
Thanks, Ben. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Good. All right, next up, we have an application to the Conservation Commission. And this is an application by, come on, I gotta get my cursor in the right place. If someone else has the name off the top of your head. Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to appoint, Michelle, are you there online or anything?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Why don't you come on up so we can meet you? Thanks for being here and thanks for volunteering to do this.
A lot of meetings in my life.
So why don't you
Michelle
tell,
Poe, I live on City Side Drive. I think my application is part of the packet. Do you have questions that you want to ask me, or do you want me to carry on in some way?
if you have a minute or two, that's all we really need.
And what do you need in that minute?
Anything you want to say.
Well, I think I have good background in both gardening and training as a master gardener, master composter. I recently took the coverts training that the national, it's a coalition, which made me very aware of the woodlands that Montpelier has. And so I began thinking about that. I mostly volunteer in my neighborhood as a gardener, but I'm about to take the Massachusetts Audubon certification course in sustainable landscaping. And I feel like the relationship between residents and their natural environment is kind of a nice sized bite to think about climate change and the effect that we have on our environment. So I feel like I'd like to contribute, and
Great, thanks.
to have me.
You live just up the hill from me because I live on Town Street. So
yeah,
the woods between my house and Murray Hill, very nice spot.
Yeah, it needs to be nurtured.
Council members, anything? Is there a motion to appoint Michelle?
I move we appoint Michelle Champeau to the Conservation Commission.
Thank you.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Thanks, Michelle. And
Thank you so much.
I'll echo what Ben said. We have so many committees and commissions, and we always get people who with a great deal of expertise to come to volunteer for that work, and it really helps the quality of life in the city.
Well, thanks for having me.
All right, next up, budget workshop. Oh, look who's here. So good to see you. I didn't see you in the back. I was thinking, oh, geez, what's going to happen?
Quiet.
Sorry. Sarah LaCroix, don't have a title anymore, was the finance director. So I don't have a presentation for all of you. You have heard from me for months now about all things budget and then this budget. Obviously, the city manager's recommended budget comes in at a little over 11%. We also presented a level fund budget that comes in at about 2.5%. And so what I was thinking for tonight, because we have heard a lot from me and not a lot from all of you, I think it would be great if we could go around, Jack, if you support that, and every counselor should talk about what's important to them in this budget. The city manager's recommended budget at the 11% is what it costs to run the city, and it includes the strategic plan initiative items. And so that's the budget that we put forth. Obviously, that's a high increase, and we understand that that likely is not palatable. And so at this point, we're at policy decisions about what is in and what's out. And so I think it would be good to talk about as a group collectively what is important to all of you in this budget as we move ahead. And then I think I'll pull up the spreadsheet, and we can either work from the 11% down or the 2.5% up, whichever is council's pleasure collectively. And once we get everybody's ideas on the table, then we can vote yay or nay on those. And at the end of tonight, we need to come out with a budget. That budget still can change, but we will need to have the first budget hearing and the first bond hearing at the next meeting. And so we have to come out with a budget approved by council tonight. You can still change it. The next one, we did that last year. So that's kind of where we are today. So Jack, if you want to.
Thanks, Sarah. That's a great introduction. Council members, anyone coming in with thoughts right off the bat?
I asked her a question.
Sure.
Sarah, I wanted to make sure that the 11% was without the ballot items.
No, that's
Is it with the ballot items or without?
I believe it's with.
The 11% doesn't factor in the library increase. And I'm not sure exactly off the top of my head what that is. That's a separate amount. But it would factor in like the community fund.
Okay, because on the worksheet, they're all grouped together saying the same. They're designated in the same way. So you're saying two are.
It's all property taxes, but the ones we're talking about are the ones in your control, not the ones that are not. Like
Two are included and the ballot item for the library is not included.
right, the library or the mosaic, those aren't part of that they're an additional percentage increase.
Okay. Adrian, I saw your hand before Carrie, so.
Yeah, I would love to go through the Excel spreadsheet. I spent some time with it, and I think it's such a powerful tool to be able to plug in or deduct. And then, I think what most people care about in the end is like, well, how much is it going to increase my tax bill, right? So what your spreadsheet does is tells them exactly that information. So I think it's amazing. And there were some questions that I had. I was going through it, and I think just what Sal said, like some of those additional ballot items were kind of confusing, and some of the numbers at the bottom didn't like 100% make sense to me. So I was trying to think of how I would teach someone to use that spreadsheet. So it might be really helpful, at least I'm just going to say my opinion, for you to go through that, and maybe we can go an exercise of like adding and subtracting and seeing what that tax bill will be for, I think it's a house appraised at $350,000, which.
Yeah, absolutely. We use 370 because that's the average in the city right now for the annual value. But my plan is to do that once we get through talking about, what everybody has in their mind for this budget as we move ahead. And then I'll start plunking numbers into this spreadsheet and share it live so you all can see what's happening and what it does to the percentages and the rates and each tax bill collectively. I also have a slightly updated version of the sheet that I'm using. I took the schools increase from their December 17th presentation and have factored that in at the bottom so you can see what the ed taxes roughly in estimate would increase where they are right now as well. And we'll get that posted online tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm following up on Sal's question about the spreadsheet also and about ballot items.
Yes.
And I started 2 different emails today asking about this, and then I thought, no, I think I figured it out. No, I just don't understand what I'm looking at. No, maybe now I do, and I really did not. So now I get to ask you. So it looks to me when I look at this like the projected municipal tax rate, excluding ballot items, the percent change is 11.15%.
Yes.
And then a little bit farther down, it says property tax rate with ballot items included, the percentage change is 10.71%.
Yep. It's distorted because of the amounts of the total picture. And so the way that the general fund works is that, we're plunking in the library in here, and the library is fully property tax where everything else is spread around. And so what we're adding in, I'm not explaining this well, so I apologize. But it changes the picture. So the overall percentage, when you start to factor in all of the things, is a little bit less on how it plays out when you do the tax rate calculation.
So I don't understand that at all, but I take your word for it.
No, I understand.
So then my question is, if all the ballot items pass, will people's tax increase be lower than it would have been if the ballot items don't pass.
Yes. If the ballot items don't
If
pass,
they do pass, the ballot items pass,
yes,
then we'll only have a 10.71% rate increase.
correct.
And if they don't pass, we'll have an 11.15% rate increase.
No.
Doesn't sound right.
That's
a
Is
good
it
idea.
possible to share that?
Thank you. I should have joined the meeting here.
Oh, yes, you definitely should. So.
And also, I'm looking for it.
Okay.
Okay, so here you can see the spreadsheet. Bear with me. I'm just trying to get myself. I've been on vacation, so I've not been immersed in this as recently as I would love to be. So the way the spreadsheet works, though, is that you can slot amounts in and you can see what it does to the tax rate. When we're looking here, we're looking solely at the general fund portion in the city council's proposed budget. So that is not the library, that is not downtown improvement district, that is not the community fund allocation, mosaic, the library. None of those things are part of what we're talking about at that 20 million number. They are all in addition to. And so when you add those into the total, I'm just not going to be able to explain this in a way that makes sense, and I apologize. I'm stuck in accounting land. But the way it works here is, you know, if I say I want to add $100,000 to this budget, you can see here what that tax rate impact is, and then it drives your percentage up here and overall, and you can see then below what it does to the tax rate.
So could you do that again a little
Farther.
more slowly so that
Higher up to the earlier part of the sheet.
Yep. Where are we looking? Where would you like?
More to the top.
Yes.
Okay, so this is a little bit different.
This one's a little bit different. It has more detail. This portion is not editable, but
so line 12.
Yes.
Says projected municipal tax rate.
Yes.
Percent change 11.15%.
Yes.
And then line 20. Property tax rate with ballot items included.
Yes.
The increase is 10.71%.
That's correct.
So again, if all the ballot items pass and that they're all included, then the rate of increase of our taxes is less than it would be without the ballot items.
No.
So why does it, what do these lines mean then? Because that's what it seems like it's saying.
Yeah, so the purpose of these lines is to show the ballot items and a breakout of what are the ballot items versus what's within your control. Overall, in total, the percentage gets skewed just based on size of pie and pieces in it. But if they all get approved, it's not an inherent decrease in the tax rate in general. Like it just is.
Then what is this 10.71%?
The 10.71% is what it nets to overall when you take in account all of the ballot items.
I still don't see why it's lower than when you don't take into account the ballot items. That's what I'm struggling with.
I understand.
Am I
and I'm just not doing a stellar job explaining. So I apologize.
Does that number?
Yeah, go ahead.
Am I correct that 10.7% is 10.7% of a larger number with the ballot items added in there? Whereas the 11.6 is just the municipal budget, which is a smaller number. So,
correct.
Right. Does that make sense?
Well, but this is the tax rate, not the overall amount of money raised, but the rate.
Right.
The rate, if the rate is going down, this is what people are going to be really looking at, right? Because the rate is what affects people's individual property taxes. A lower rate, a lower property tax rate will be a lower property tax bill.
Yeah.
So, no.
So if those budget items, ballot items pass, then the total amount of revenue we raise from the taxpayers is going to be higher. So it seems logical that that would mean that the number that the increase would be higher.
May I ask for a break on this question and move through the rest of the stuff and let me get myself in a way to give you the educated answer I want to and not
Yes.
this one?
Yes, that's totally fine.
Okay.
Jim,
Thank
you've
you.
got your hand up.
Yeah, maybe I'm old school, but I'm used to hearing how many cents, like it raises, like, okay, this is a 13-cent raise. That's, and I'm not seeing how to convert that to, cents. Because you say 1 cent is like $137,000.
131, Jim. Yep.
Okay, close.
Yep.
So is there anywhere that says what that is and how these percents relate to cents? Because a lot of people in the past, that's how they kind of measured things.
They don't. We do talk about it and we can see what the 131 does to it when we plug that number in. But in the past 3 years that I've been here, it's all been around percentages and not the cents. So I had not incorporated that into this calculation.
Is that something that's easy to do?
Yeah. Let's see. It's about 10 cents, 10.5 cents.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Council members, any other questions at this point? I know that there's going to be a bunch of questions as we go along. Sal, I understand that you had a question about how the staffing relates to overtime. Did you?
Well, yeah. I've asked about it. I haven't got. I think the analysis that is still underway, but I was trying to figure out from the numbers if exactly what it accomplished, if anything did. It looks like it worked one way for fire and another way for police. I'm not sure, but
okay.
I was hoping that adding personnel would at least keep overtime where it is or possibly reduce it. I'm not sure that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, I think they could speak to it as well. In the fire department, we're talking about adding staff above their previous staffing levels and how adding that and changing shift coverage could reduce overtime. And you can see that in the budget that we presented in the city manager's budget, that there is an add of staff and a reduction in overtime. For the police department, it doesn't work quite the same way. Right now, they are self-managing really well to keep the 24-hour coverage. The 17th officer really allows them to get closer to a comfortable minimum staffing at that 24-hour period. It's not going to reduce their overtime because they still will need that overtime. So it's apples and oranges when you're looking at each department.
Yeah, because of the different goals.
Yeah. So, without the 17th officer, you would need to talk about what overnight staffing potentially or 24-hour coverage may look like if you can't get the 17th officer back. So those are part of the conversation as, we delve into overtime.
So we still have a police position open, don't we?
Correct.
Yeah.
Carrie, come on up. Thanks, Carrie.
Okay, so what I should have said to start out is that I need to recuse myself on on the city clerk budget. So any comments that I make, I will stick to the rest of the budget. So and I won't vote on it because I'm married to the city clerk, and it is in my interest that he gets paid. So it's a conflict of interest. And then I will say that I have a bunch of little questions, but I really liked Sarah's idea of let's kind of do some big picture, talk about kind of what's important to all of us first, and then we can get into the little details. So I will start that. I love the idea of adding into our budget rather than cutting. So looking at it starting from the level funded budget, and then what do we add on to that, and deciding what we add on to that based on the priorities that we've established and based on what we know what services need to be provided. And so I would say that adding back in the positions that were cut from last year seems really clear to me that things are not functioning well without those positions. And so I think it's clear that we need to add them back in.
Could I interrupt and ask Sarah to do something while we're talking about this? Sarah, do you have the ability to get to put up this great page that says decision points, what's in, because that is where everyone can see each of those positions.
I already have that presentation up, so just give me a minute to load.
And then looking at our priorities, we said this year, housing, infrastructure, economic development. So infrastructure, I think in all versions of the budget so far we've got increased money for paving because of the local options tax, which is great. And I'm very much in favor of that. So I feel like it's addressing that priority nicely. There's plenty more we could do in infrastructure, but and for housing, I think it's just absolutely essential that we fund the Housing Trust Fund this year. We have gone for 2 years not funding it at all. It's basically gone. And if housing is important to us, this is one of the best ways that we can show that support and actually support it. So I think the $100,000 for the Housing Trust Fund, the Housing Committee would really like to see $250,000 put in there. If we could find a way to do that, that would be fantastic. But I think 100,000 is kind of a basic minimum. It doesn't get us caught up to where we should be, but it at least starts the process. And then for economic development, this is where some of my questions come in about how much is going to Montpelier Live. Is that actually economic development? And there's something about $50,000 for economic development. I don't really know what that's for. So that's, I need to know more about that before I know what we kind of need to add back in. And then for, when I look at the operating costs, the operating increases in the proposed budget, I think there are probably some things in there that are absolutely essential. And but we would need to look a little bit more closely at what all of those things are. But the top priority is to get the staff that we need put in the budget for me.
Thanks. I think I'm with you on just about everything you said. I think that the experience just over the past 6 months since just about 6 months since we
since the staffing cuts went into effect and obviously some of those positions were vacant before July 1st, but has been that it's been very, very hard for our staff to do all the things that are expected of them. And I certainly hear people saying, well, our taxes are too high, I'd like to pay less. I don't hear people saying, do less for that money. And I think that the expectations for the city government are very high. And I think that it's important to make sure that the staff is there to provide the services that we need to provide. And so for the add-ins for the for personnel are bringing the zoning administrator up to full-time, adding one police officer, adding one DPW employee in streets, adding one firefighter and gear, and it's about $10,000 to gear up a firefighter, and add back the administrative assistant in the city manager's office. And I would really like to see all of them stay in the budget. I think that that those of us who interact with the city manager's office and interact with the government really notice that the loss of those positions.
So I will just take from what you left off. So I want to support all the need and want of the city staff. So when I check the administrative assistant, because it's an assistant position, and it is almost $120,000. So in my workplace, if we want to pay that much for a position, it's usually office manager title, and they do a lot. So is there any reason the salary is too high, or?
Yeah, so that is not the salary. That is all in an employee cost. That includes two-person benefit plans and all other like a Medicare, Beamers, retirement. That is all in. So I wanted to make sure I gave you the cost, because if you pulled it, all of those things go out, right? Or in. So this is total package cost.
Great. So that was one question.
Not rate of pay.
Yes. So what is the salary then? Can we learn that? Because I am receiving like questions about that, right? So
yeah,
it have to be tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it's an estimated salary based on rate of pay, similar to the person who was in there prior. And so, it would be commensurate with experience once hired. So this is kind of like a middle of the road place to land. It could, when you hire somebody, it could come in more depending on experience. It could come in less and you have savings. So this is, middle of the road.
So I should tell people they can go back and check the former salary, right?
Yes, and that data is available from last year's budget season. But yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
As long as they understand that may not be what the next person actually gets, but yeah.
There is some kind of general understanding, right? Because now we know that this is not the salary, like this is a total amount. It's a great clarification. But again, not everyone, when they look at this document, they understand the difference. So thank you.
Jim.
I'd like to hear from each department head, talking about the person they want to add, what it'll mean, why they're asking for it. How is it going to make a difference? I just heard that, in DPW, for instance, we have 3 people we haven't even filled. So they're short 3 people. So, I mean, and now they want another one, but they can't even get 3 people. They can't even get the 3. So if we had the 3, how does the the one that they want to add change things if they have it full. Same thing with police. You know, I don't know if they've ever had it up to full. So if they have it up to full, what do they anticipate the other officer is needed for, and how will that change things? Same with the firefighter. You know, I mean, are they here to talk about this?
Yes.
They are all here, Jim. These are all with the exception of the firefighter, and that firefighter also includes $10,000 worth of gear, which I just wanted to note in that dollar amount. They're all restorations. So they were people who were previously bodies in trucks, in police cars, in the city manager's office. They had roles and they were doing jobs that currently other people are supplementing. And so putting those people back helps, you know, make departments more whole. They can all get up here and speak on their own behalf, but they're not, with the exception of the firefighter, none of these are new. They were cut during tough times in previous budgets.
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, Jim, I think that's a great suggestion. Why don't we go in order of those positions? So Mike Miller, if you could talk about increasing the zoning administrator to full-time.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Apologies for being at home. I've got COVID again. Came back. I had it last week and came back to bite me today. So apologies for not being there. No,
we want you home.
So the planning department is also another one. So this is Meredith's position. It is actually not a restoration. She wasn't cut last year. This is an increase. So this was a position that had been cut back when, way back, even before I got here, back when Clancy was here, his position when he left got cut to halftime. And since that time, we had found it wasn't effective. And so council had moved that up to 0.8, which had worked for a long time for Meredith. Because of her family situation, it worked out well for her to not go to full time. But we have had a number of projects that are sitting kind of in a holding pattern, one of which is we have hundreds of boxes of permits from the flood that were all sent to the drying facility. Those all need to get scanned and put into our permit software. So we've got permit software. Since the flood, the planning department has operated paperless. We don't save any files anymore, so we don't have those rows of filing cabinets, but we still need to take all those old permits and get them scanned in so that way they would be available. And actually that'd be a great resource if we could get it done, because then people could do title research online and get access to all the information. We also have a big need for E911. We are one of the few communities in the state to never have gotten into compliance. And we have a number of streets that right now we literally have run out of numbers for, and we need to renumber them. And that's, the E911 coordinator is Meredith as well. So we're really just looking to add that time in, so that way she's got the capacity to start to chip away at these bigger projects that they really have to be done. We really have to get the information digitized. We're losing out on a lot of important information, not having those files. And E911 is just, it's decades overdue, and we really need to dedicate time to that. So that's why we're increasing her time by the 0.2.
Thanks, Mike. Does anyone have any questions for Mike before we move to the next item? So,
do we know what the all-in cost is for that? Is it all collected in one place, or is it
For all of
that increase?
For the 0.2?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the 26 OD190 that's on this on the screen.
Oh, on the sheet there. Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Jack, could I ask a question? Sorry, I can't find the raise hand function.
Yeah, please do.
Mike, just curious about the idea of, those files, the permits and things like that. Have you looked in at all to the idea of like contracting a firm to do that, to kind of digitize it as a one-time expense as opposed to ongoing salary?
We haven't. Our plan this winter. We're currently working our way through the a CRS FEMA approval, and we're hoping to have that wrapped up in the month. And then Nick and Meredith are going to work on a few test cases. The issue is if they get scanned in a bunch, and it may work out that can work, but there's a lot of filtering that needs to be done with these. The old files were really not well organized, and there's a lot of unnecessary and duplicative paperwork in there. There's a lot of folded site plans, and it may be possible we can go and price some of those out, but we also wanted to go through and just run through in-house. What would it take to get through 3 boxes? And then how many boxes do we have? So that way we can kind of get an idea. And we may decide when we find out that number that it's like, yeah, we need to look at alternatives. But for now, we want to start with this. But even if it does get all digitized outside, we will end up with a huge file that we are still going to have to do the sorting. This particular sheet goes to 141 Berry Street, and this particular sheet goes to 143 Berry Street, and that's all going to be manual. That's going to take a lot of time. So we may do the scanning outside and then all the paperwork inside, but we just have to work on it a little bit, work out how the process would be most efficient.
Thanks, Mike. Police Department, Chief, do you want to step up?
Thank you, Eric Nordenson from the Police Department. I'd like to just go through, if it's okay, real quick, just some of my additions and the whys. I think that's helpful, if that's okay. For dispatch, the state of Vermont did a communications task force study. It says that our staffing should be at 11. So that's a state study. We're at 8. I haven't asked for any new positions. We're down 2 there right now. We're losing staff to state. The pay is significantly higher at the state. So it's a constant battle. So I couldn't in good conscience ask for any more staff, but at some point, I think we're going to have to address that either regionally or, through some other options. So for dispatch, the only things I asked for was $5,000 extra for overtime, which matched what our actual expenses were. I always find it's reasonable to budget what you're actually spending as opposed to saying, no, let's hope it's going to be a little less. When people get pay raises, it typically doesn't go down. The other thing I did was $5,000 for 911 mapping, so our dispatchers could actually see the map where they're sending people and actually communicate accurately with first responders. So the addition to them was pretty simple. For PD, it's a little different. Obviously, I asked for the return of the 17th police officer position, which I'll talk about in a second. Overtime was an additional $10,000, which matched, again, our actuals. And I'll give an explanation why. And Sal, I've always told you, when you add, it doesn't necessarily lower. I'd love to tell you I'm going to lower the overtime. I have a couple whys. One thing I've been trying to get, I spend a lot of time with data and transparency, and it spends a lot of time, and I keep hearing efficiencies, and I have an efficiency solution. I just need some money, so I've put in for an online dashboard. I put in actually half of the cost of what it's going to cost me, and I hope to absorb the other half in my budget that I currently have. I cut out some memberships and clubs that I belong to that, they're resources to us, but I think people still answer my phone call if I call them. So we'll hope for the best there. I put in $7,000 extra for equipment, and the main topic of that equipment was tasers. My use of force is up from 15 to 24 incidents this year, and part of that is because we're responding with less officers and putting our people at risk. So it's really important to me to give officers something to protect themselves on their person other than their firearm. So that's the rationale for that. I put in an extra $6,000 for building maintenance. Building's 25 years old, hard to believe. I remember moving into that building. So there's just some issues that I want to make sure that there's proper funding in there for any repairs that we have. But then I shared with you folks, I was hoping to talk to you all at our individual meetings, and I knew that just didn't pan out. So I'm sorry if it was inappropriate, but I wanted to send you our data. I thought it was really important to get the data because we always do the budget and no one knows the why. if you just take a look to start, if you look at our calls for service, we're working effectively with 15 police officers right now. One's in training, so that puts us at 14. I'm recovering from a broken leg still, so I'm doing mostly administrative work. That's 13. I've got one on family medical leave, for a baby. That puts you at 12, right? I got another one who's taking care of an in-law. That puts you at 11. So what we're doing is almost amazing with 11 effective police officers right now. And you can look at our numbers. I need some depth. I have a police candidate currently in my building doing ride-along, so I'm optimistic to fill the 16th. That's why when you start talking about the 17th, I wanted to jump out of my chair and say, hey, no, I'm trying. We've had about 158 different candidates, and I'm often asked what I'm most proud of at the PD is that we basically won't lower our standards. I could fill the spots. If you told me tomorrow to fill the spot, I could fill it, but I will not lower our standards. So that's why it's still sitting vacant. So one of the things I'm most proud of, and everybody on our team is very proud, the fact that our standards are so high and that we won't just settle for somebody to fill the seat. So I hope you take that. If you look at our calls are incredible, but the amount of arrests, I think, is the part that I really wanted to show. If you look at our arrest reports, I don't usually do double-sided pages, so bear with me on this. Of course, I got my readers too. It's on this page right now. Yeah. So I know we went up from, we had about 609 arrests this year. Yeah. Those are my totals right there. There we go. That's what I was looking for. So we basically, I look at our reported offenses. So that's basically the crimes that are occurring in the city. And oftentimes, people call us, or what I've been trying to do is get a lot of directed enforcement efforts in areas that we have problems. So we actually can identify problems before calls come in. So our reported offenses go up. And then I look at the arrests that we make. In 2024, I was like, oh my goodness, we've made 465 arrests or separate charges. And then all of a sudden we jump up in 2025 to 609, which was 390 different people. And what does that mean, right? When I look at what that means, we cut 75% of our administrative support out of a budget many years ago. So somebody has to do now the increased discovery requests for court, right? So that's 390 different people we got to do discovery requests for. I think I had 287 public records requests. I match or exceed what the city's going through. So as you can imagine, the people to absorb that are, the sergeants, the staff, the dispatchers, and now we're short a little dispatch and we're short a little police. So the strain is there. So when I tell you, Sal, I want to cut the overtime, the numbers just aren't matching, and then they have to go to court. And the biggest piece here, and Sarah touched on it, is I'm tinkering. I'm on the brink of wondering, do we go back to our minimum staffing of 3 because it was safer for the cops and we didn't have as many use of force situations? I'm a soccer coach by trade. I always look for numbers up situations. When I have a 1-on-1 or a 2-on-1, I know I'm good, right? When you go into a situation with 2 or 3 officers and a volatile person, the more you have there, it de-escalates the situation, the less likely they are to fight. So are we giving them an opportunity by shortening our staff to fight us more frequently? I think there's some chance of that. And that's the part I really want to avoid. So in short, I'm hoping that I can fill the 17th position I always call is hope. And it also gives me, I have a very good connection at Norwich, and I'd like to take some chances. With a 16th spot, I'm not inclined to take those chances. That's a part-time to full-time process. I have a lot of creative ideas, but when you're talking about the last 16th person, I'm a little scared to take that risk, because if I take that risk and it doesn't pan out, I've basically held a spot for too long. At a 17th, I have a little cushion. I know I can survive at the 16th. I know it's hard, but at the 17th, I know if I can make it work, we're in that much better spot. And then just covering time, our staff, much like everybody else, they're covering shifts. We're doing extra time. We were at the State House at 8 o'clock this morning for the state of the state. And I'm very thankful it's not 10:30 because I didn't know if I was going to make it. But yeah, those are some of the things. And, and then we're also a regional hub, as you know, we have a lot of expertise in our office, which I'm very happy for. So we help with, sexual assaults, internal investigations for a lot of different communities. That's just kind of our role as being kind of the bigger player in the area. and being cooperative. And, in turn, I have to, if we have them, they have to help us. So it works out pretty good. But we have some specialty training there. And then just the last piece of on the back, I've got QR codes. We're at hiring fairs. I've bought more swag stuff than I never thought I would buy just to get into different colleges, to get into job fairs, to go visit people where they are to see if they're interested in the line of work. We've had a lot of people through the door, but the standards are just really high. And it's been a trick to get the physical fitness that they require at the academy. The backgrounds are tricky these days. And now they've reinstituted the written test, which has been a hurdle for a lot of people, which I was happy when they got rid of that because it was a big barrier for people, and now they've brought it back and it's a barrier again because we can teach good people to be cops, like I always say. I just got to find the good people. So with that, I'll leave you with any questions.
Thanks, Chief. Council members, any questions before we move along?
Thank you.
DPW.
So I'll start with saying we have, since we're in the winter months, we'll talk about that first. Public Works is sort of split between winter and summer. Differences operationally. So we have 13 plow routes, and right now we have 10 staff members in streets. One of those 10 is a supervisor, and one is out on injury. We also have a vacancy. So we do have some turnover. There's only one vacancy in streets. The other two vacancies, one's in engineering and the other one's in the equipment division. So in order to manage winter operations now, we have to rely on our water sewer staff and as well as our two mechanics to do plowing operations. But even with that, we are running really long shifts. We have a goal of no more than 16 hours straight. We're not able to maintain that right now with the current staffing levels. And so there's a safety concern with the number of hours that our staff is putting in. There's also the risk of water leaks happening at the same time as a snowstorm, in which case we're not going to be able to do both. So we're either going to have to make a choice to not plow the roads or not fix the water main that night. And that's, that's risky and that's not consistent with our past practice. We also had to, when that position, streets position was cut, we reallocated our stock records clerk position to move them into streets. And that position is really key in maintaining our work orders. So a lot of our data for how much salt we use and, staff time, equipment, we sort of are missing that now. And so our work order and our supervisor also is on an active plow route, who is also responsible for work order management. We are trying to move to a staff input system, but it's been a challenge. So we, in addition to long hours and insufficient staff, we're also missing out on some of the capturing the data that helps us make informed decisions for changes and improvements. So this winter we've been running two of our three sidewalk plows because of the shortages, which I think some of the councilors have seen complaints in getting some of the sidewalk cleared in the outer areas. And the other piece to mention is snow removal. So because of all the hours that our staff is putting in, we're not able to consistently address snow removal in the downtown, which we've heard is really important to the business community. But, after staff is working, 16, 20 hours, we can't ask them to come in and put more overtime overnight to remove snow. So it's impacting our business community as well. For the summer months, our CIP program, paving in particular, is very significantly increased in this budget. And we utilize our staff in the summer months in the streets to really help offset the contracted costs. So things like asphalt sidewalks. We have an asphalt sidewalk paver that we can do at a fraction of the cost of contracted work. So there's a lot of savings opportunities when we have sufficient staffing to reduce the overall impact on the budget and the CIP fund.
Kurt, you mentioned asphalt sidewalks. Is there a standard for where we use asphalt for sidewalks?
There is, it's kind of Corey's expertise area, but it's essentially, it's within sort of the downtown district is all concrete. And then the outer areas tend to be asphalt.
Thanks.
We don't do in-house concrete sidewalks. That's sort of a more specialized work, but we do prep the base for both sidewalk types. So we excavate out, put the gravel in and compact it. We also have our streets division remove asphalt on areas that are very poor condition. Can do that also at a much cheaper rate than contracting. So there's a number of items that we can help save money, and it does more than offset the cost of a single salary. The other piece is the municipal roads general permit. I brought this up when the streets position was cut in the budget. There's a average of $20,000 available every year, where if the city does like road outfall or drainage stabilization projects, the state will provide a grant and actually cover up to $20,000 worth of staff time to do that work. This year we did not have the staff to do that, so we hired a contractor to do the work because you're still required to do it, whether it's in-house or contracted. But we didn't get that money back in; it just went to the contractor. Whereas if we had sufficient staffing, we could actually save that portion of the salary.
So does that mean that if we added this position, it's listed as 103, but it would net out to 83 because we got the 20,000 back from the state?
Right. And then because we do have a fair amount of turnover within these positions and also currently a non-work related injury outage, it just helps us kind of maintain stability. We do have a plan to try to improve recruitment, looking at trade schools, at folks graduating high school, more of a different focus than historic practices. A lot of our staff is word of mouth, and that's how we get applicants. Although we do post, we've tried Indeed, we've tried Front Porch Forum, and of course the website. But we're going to change our focus to get more staff in. But we do have a need in the department for the reasons I mentioned, both in the summer and the winter, to get back to what the staffing levels were previously. One other thing is the parking lots, particularly at City Hall. That was a contracted service until about 2 years ago. The company that was doing it the owner passed away, and Public Works took over that function. So we're doing more areas, more maintenance with less staff. And then of course there's all the added infrastructure, the new bike path that was added a few years ago, but we never added staff to account for increased infrastructure to maintain.
Do we plow the parking lot on the other side of Main Street too, like behind the stores?
Yeah,
the one that we lease.
Yes, the Jacobs lot. Yep. Yeah, we plow. We also added temporarily for this winter, we're doing the GSA lot behind the post office. We have an agreement with GSA to maintain that through the winter to provide free parking for the downtown. And then just one other sort of winter operation that we haven't been able to do is we have an asphalt recycling tool, so we can make our own asphalt in the winter months when you can't get it from a plant. But we don't have the staff capacity. It does take a fair amount of staff members to operate that. But without sufficient staffing and not, like I said, all the overtime that our staff has been putting in, we haven't been utilizing that this winter. So our patching is done with cold patch. It's less resilient and often has to be done, multiple times as opposed to, a really high quality patch with hot asphalt. So yeah, those are the highlights. I'm happy to talk about anything in more detail.
Any questions, or should we move on? Go ahead, Chris.
Sure. The example you gave me today in the cost differential with in-house setting of structures for paving projects as opposed to contracting. I think it was an Elm Street project that you were talking about.
Oh, okay. Why don't you come on up to the table? So
Not this past fiscal year, Zach Bucket, Deputy Director for DPW. So not this past year for the paving contract, but the summer before that, when we did the meadow. If you all remember, we made a motion for 150,000 in structure adjustments. That was all contracted services. So with the appropriate staff, those are one of the tasks that we do in order to keep the costs down so that we can do more, we can pay more, we can get more done with the dollars that we have. So, I mean, in that specific year, it was 150,000. As we increase that number, it's going to go up. The amount of structures on Berlin Street alone is going to run about probably $100,000 at a rough estimate. So,
and to perform that in-house, you said, I found this shocking, would be just a few $1,000s.
Yes, because it's resource time, right? It's very little materials. You're reusing the frame, the cover. You have to buy either cement or grade rings to redo them, but it's time. It's physically time. So there's not a lot of material cost. It is time and resources.
And the things you're talking about are storm receivers and stuff like that?
Yeah, manholes, water valves, and storm receivers. They have to be adjusted to the grade so that they can pave them. So when we can't perform them in-house, then we have to rely on a contractor to do it. And the rough number is about $1,000 a structure. You can get a little less for a water valve, but up to like 1,500. So every single structure that needs to be adjusted, that's the number that you're looking at.
Heads up.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Chris.
All right, fire department, chief.
Hey, Jack, can I just ask?
Oh, sorry, Ben. I noticed you had your hand up.
No, I just want to, this is really more, I think, for Kurt. Adrian and I yesterday had a chance to meet with department heads and, kind of heard just some of the challenges that they're facing. And Kurt mentioned the fact that, and if I'm wrong, Kurt, please correct me if I'm mischaracterizing this, but I thought I heard you say that really kind of like with the staffing challenges that you're having, that it kind of has this cascading effect that impacts the entire department and is actually impacting your ability to look for grants that might supplement the kind of dollars that are coming in from the taxes.
Yes, that's true. Not necessarily for the streets position, but for our vacant engineering position, and then the other work that the HR that Tanya from HR has been tasked with due to the vacancies within the city manager's office. So yes, that's true. Not specifically to the streets position. That has a cascading effect on the other divisions. So the water division and the mechanics are doing, winter operations, so it impacts them. But as far as our ability to hire, it's more within the city hall and engineering vacancies.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, chief. Thanks for being here.
Jack.
So sorry, go ahead, Jim.
Maybe this isn't the time, but I would like somebody to talk a little bit about the water sewer bond.
We do have that on for public hearing starting next week.
Okay, thank you.
Is that good enough? Yep.
Yep.
Good evening, Derek Libby, Fire Chief. The position that is on for us is not a replacement of a vacant position. This is an addition. As you remember from the staffing assessment and the matrix report, the recommendations were for 5 positions. That was our original ask, and we've come down to this point. To answer the question as to how this position would impact overtime, I'm not 100% sure that one position has a significant reduction in overtime based on the causes of overtime, right? Overtime in the fire department is driven by safety factors and minimum staffing. Currently, our minimum staffing is 3 people on duty for the fire and the ambulance. So that means if an ambulance call happens, we're left with 1 person. When someone takes a day off, that causes the hiring of overtime. So with the 17 positions in the fire department, we have 202 years of experience. I have 5 people with 19 plus years of employment with the city. As of November, we had 98 24-hour shifts of vacation leave that were on the books for members and 218 days, 24-hour days of sick leave. Currently, I have 1 member deployed on military leave, so that leaves every shift that they're scheduled to work as a vacancy. I've moved people around to try and offset that vacancy, but it reduces the number of people available to respond to calls. Within a 40-minute period today, we responded to 4 calls for service with 3 people on duty, calling in mutual aid ambulances to transport 2 of those calls. So a revenue loss. In the last year, we received mutual aid 73 times for various calls. A high percentage of those is medical calls that we don't receive billing for.
Is that high for us?
It's hard to say. Our call volume's up. Our simultaneous calls are at just under 14%. So with 3 people on duty, 14% of the time we can handle one of the 2 or 3 calls going on and have to rely on incoming units from other areas, either ambulances or fire suppression units to assist in that. So the reality is that, will this position reduce over time? It's a step toward safer staffing for the fire department and a step toward being able to handle the call volume that we're seeing and the simultaneous requests for services. As you know, we provide ambulance service to Worcester, Middlesex, and a portion of Moortown. When that truck is gone, there is 1 person often left in the city to cover any fire or medical response. So the 2011 staffing assessment was also a picture that had part-time employees and part of a call staff, and we no longer have that. So the 17 full-time employees that the fire department has are the entire firefighting force. So.
Folks, any questions?
I guess I never expected that one additional firefighter would affect it. What I was wondering is, given the amount of overtime, if you could hire a not tenured staff so that you don't have the vacation and sick leave problem, but what number of employees would you need to hire full-time to more than offset the overtime? In other words, if you hired 4 new firefighters.
If I hired the 5 firefighters that were in the assessment, that would give me staff of 5 people on duty with minimum staffing of 4 people. So you would have built-in cushion when someone takes a day off. Unfortunately, the staffing model is impacted that someone takes a day off, it drives the overtime.
So you're saying that it wouldn't work, that the recommendation on the assessment would not offset the overtime, or it would?
It would offset overtime. I don't know that it wouldn't do away with overtime. Obviously, if someone's out on workers' comp and someone takes a vacation day, you're starting off below minimum staffing.
Yeah, no, not necessary to, I mean, all I'm looking for is a net gain. You know what I mean? So I'm saying, because there's an advantage to having a full-time people, just on reducing stress and strain and injury and all of that. And if it also offsets overtime, I mean, literally reduces the net cost. You're paying full-time salaries, but you're not paying the volume of overtime. And you know, I don't even have a target percentage, just it seems like any reduction would make sense. Maybe it's not possible.
From a math perspective, excuse me, if it's helpful, if you see the fire department cost per new firefighter and gear at the 118,000 per person, if I add 5 people, that's an increase of $590,000 to the budget. The current overtime line or the previous overtime line was in the like 275 range. So we wouldn't like with the add of 5, we wouldn't eliminate overtime entirely, and we would be adding an additional large cost on top of it. So when we crunched all of the numbers mathematically, adding all of these, we didn't get the reduction you were looking for.
Okay. That's what I needed to know.
That being said, you would increase your billables.
Because if we have mutual aid for an ambulance call, whatever the sending service is the one that gets billed for
The
that.
transporting agency.
Yep.
Yeah. So you would theoretically be able to handle 2 ambulance calls.
So
at
maybe,
the same time.
maybe there's a sweet spot there that we could discover, or maybe not tonight, but we.
Well, that was why they did a great analysis, and we did reduce overtime with the add of the firefighter. And so I think this is like getting our feet wet, right?
Yeah, I know, I saw that.
Give it a try and see how that works. And then maybe as a phased approach, you could start working more in and adjusting those shifts.
Yeah. That was great. I appreciate the effort there.
Anyone else before we move along the next service? Thanks, Chief. All right, Chris, City Manager's Office. Oh, okay.
Hi, everyone. Evelyn Prim, Acting Assistant City Manager now, formerly the Communications Coordinator. And so I appreciate the opportunity to speak on why the Executive Assistant to the City Manager's Office is critical to the functioning of our city government. And this is something that I've thought quite a lot about in the last year. It's basically been just about a year now that that we've done without this position, and we are absolutely feeling it. And so I would like to read, as I communicate best in words, to read the statement that I put together for the budget narrative on this position. So the City Manager's Office is the administrative hub for the City of Montpelier. The office is responsible for the overall administration and management of the city under the policy direction of the council. And the executive assistant to the city manager plays a critical role in supporting the staff in the city manager's office by working closely with department leaders, performing all of the actionable steps needed to achieve council goals. The former executive assistant to the city manager left in January of 2025, just about a year ago. Their workload has been triaged largely between me and our human resources director, Tanya Chambers, with additional assistance from the project assistant in the Department of Public Works, who has done an amazing job stepping into a role that was completely foreign to her workload. So she has been just incredible at helping us make it through. So the Human Resources Director now performs all of the public records requests that the city receives, not excluding police records, while I perform all administrative responsibilities related to the city's 27, et cetera, committees. And to help fill the gaps in the manager's office, as I mentioned, the project assistant in DPW now assists with building city council and posting city council agendas. So when I originally began working part-time in this role in 2022 and spoke with dozens of staff and community members, the need for more proactive communication from all areas of city government was the #1 desire that I heard, both from staff and community members alike. And I believe that remains true today. The need for better communication is regularly voiced at city council meetings by both members of the public and the council themselves. Business Association, Montpelier Business Association meetings, and it's a frequent topic on Front Porch Forum and our social media. So the early aim for this role was to be able to stay above the fray and to not get bogged down in the time-consuming day-to-day processing of administrative work, so that I could focus on working with our department leaders to improve transparency and strategic engagement and community engagement. and sharing information with the public. I also help draft policies and train and maintain the crisis communications response team. So what has happened since the executive assistant to the city manager left this role in January last year was sooner than what would have taken effect in July 1st, is that the city is essentially, we've lost all of the ground that we were able to make up since I was hired in 2022. And we are now operating primarily as a reaction only capacity. So we are responding to crisis before we are able to proactively address them, which is the whole point of having a person in the manager's office dedicated to communication, was to be able to prevent a lot of the issues that we're now experiencing, especially around residents not having the information that they need to make informed decisions on the budget. I would have loved to be able to do more active community engagement around the budget and put out more communications, but there are simply way too many other things that we're legally required to do. Basically, all of the assistant to the city manager's role it's performing, making sure that we are in compliance with public records and open meeting law, supporting council goals. So all of those things have to happen. And then what we hear a lot is the nice to haves have fallen away. And a lot of the nice to haves really did have a big community impact. And we're seeing the negative impacts of that today. So while this position has evolved over the years, I've had the great pleasure and honor to be able to work really closely with our assistant city manager and city manager over the years, and have been able to backfill, especially in these last 6 or 8 months, filling a lot of the roles of the assistant city manager that I'm now taking on fully now. And so that has allowed me to be a much more well-rounded member of the city manager's team. And I'm really proud to be able to continue serving in this role. However, the noticeable reduction in our services has strained our ability to share information timely and efficiently, and provide information in an accessible manner. As reflected in the 2025 staffing assessment, offloading the time-consuming administrative tasks to an executive assistant frees up department leaders like the city manager and assistant city manager and other members of the leadership team, so they can perform their high-level leadership functions and run their departments effectively. For these reasons, restoring the assistant to the city manager position in this budget would greatly improve the operational performance of all city staff. And this investment is essential to maintain the functionality of the city manager's office and to meet the community's clear and consistent expectations for improved communication and transparency. Without this position, we will continue to operate in a reactive crisis management mode rather than in the proactive strategic approach that both the residents and the council have prioritized. So reinstating this role will allow my position to be able to fulfill the vision that was originally established for my role, and to free up our human resources director from what she is spending. About half of her daily duties are on records requests to actually be able to be active and hiring for all the positions that we have that are budgeted and vacant right now. That has been a huge strain on her workload. And part of the reason why we haven't been able to do robust hiring is because there are so many things that absolutely have to happen. And there's just not enough time in the day or the week to do everything. And so to further improve operational efficiency, we have a candidate who has come forward just this week and is interested in applying for this role when or if it were to be restored in this budget. The benefit of this particular candidate is that their in-depth IT experience would greatly benefit a huge gap in our the skill set that we have in-house in City Hall. So the vision or the future vision for this role that we would like to explore with the new city manager would be potentially dual in nature. So not only would they be reclaiming all of the admin work that was performed by the executive two, and now being performed by mostly senior staff. But they would also relieve the new finance director of the burden of shouldering all of the city's in-house IT responsibilities, which is a huge ask for a finance director to also be fluent in IT. And so at this time, we don't have anyone in-house with a background in IT. That is something that we contract out for. And so the benefit for having this person would be huge in the fact that we'd be able to resolve issues in-house by simply just being like, hey, we ask you, and then instantly we'd have somebody to be able to call on. So this would also relieve, or it would be a heavy lift for onboarding a new finance director while simultaneously onboarding a new city manager without this critical role. So I'm happy to explore a little bit more, but that is the end of my statement.
Thanks, Evelyn. Folks, do we have it? Karen?
Thank you for all that. I want to ask for a little bit more information about public records requests. I noticed that the city manager's report has started including the numbers and the number of hours. Could you tell us about how many hours it takes? I mean, how much staff time is actually being spent on filling public records requests?
So not to steal our thunder, because this is going to be a entire item for discussion on next council agenda. So I'm really excited to be back here up with Tanya and to go to do a deep dive on that exact thing. But right now, so between Tanya and I, Tanya spends about half of her work week on public records requests. What is not accounted for in the document that we've been putting out in the ticker in the manager's weekly is that time. So what we're putting in there is just the time for producing the records, going basically from this document into an email to transmit to the person. So just because all of the staff time, it's baked into our day. So we don't get to add in addition to my 40 hours a week. I'm going to say I'm also going to work 5 hours on public records requests. I just have to make it work in my day. So we had 220 public records requests total last year.
That's not including the police.
Correct, not including the police. 157 from one person. And we spend, like I said, between Tanya and I, we are spending a considerable amount of time on public records, fulfilling public records. And the trick is with those, and why these are becoming such an issue is that we are legally required to respond to these within 3 business days. And so that means we have to drop everything that we're doing in order to fulfill this public records request. And key items are being delayed because we have to do that. We have to fulfill these records. And so it's difficult to quantify. I wish I had like a button on my desk that I could, anytime I started work on a public records request, I could just hit the button and it would just like start the clock. But that is kind of unrealistic. So we're doing our best to put together a really detailed presentation for next week to give you a fuller picture of just the load that this is putting on staff. And it's not just our department, like we're the city manager's office is the intake. So they all come to us, but we then have to say, okay, this records request is for the planning department. So now we need to contact the planning department and let them know that all of these records are due in 3 days. And if that person happens to be out sick that day, then they have to hustle and get it done the next day that they're back in. So it's not like you don't typically always have 3 days in reality to get them done. And so, yeah, happy and excited to go into detail.
Well, I appreciate that. And I think that if you could put a little button on your desk, that'd be great, because I work for the state and so I know I've had a tiny little bit of experience compared to you all of filling public records requests, and the time that it takes to sort of figure out who do I need to talk to and what exactly are they looking for and all of that stuff. It takes a long time, and it's really important that you find some way to quantify that, because that's going into our administrative costs. And So one of my priorities in thinking about the budget is get really clear on what it is that we absolutely have to do. What are we legally required to do? What are we going to get in huge trouble if we don't do? So we have to pay our bills and we have to keep the streets clear so people can drive on them. We have to respond to public records requests. I know at the state, there are people whose entire job is responding to public records requests. And if we have to add somebody in to do that, because if we're really someone's spending 20 hours a week on this, that's a half-time position. And so we need to factor that into our budget in some way, whether it's we reduce some service that's being provided somewhere else or we add more staff.
Thanks, Carrie. Ben.
Yeah, I just want to really echo what Carrie's saying there. In this particular example, I think, when Sarah was asking, how are we approaching the budget? I mean, this is really an example, I think, of like, I don't know how else to say it, but like penny wise, pound foolish. I mean, the reality is that we have to do those public record requests, right? I mean, maybe we can manage that some other way, but right now we have to do those requests. And if our HR director is spending 20 hours a week doing that, right? It just seems to me that it makes more sense to have an administrative assistant at a lower salary that can just focus on that, so that the HR director can actually do the job what we're paying her for. And in addition to that, the cascading effect of not filling positions, right? The impact that that's having on overtime, on stress, on burnout of these positions that aren't filled because our HR director can't focus on filling positions and the other important tasks that, again, an HR director does. And so, I mean, it's a terrible situation, the fact that we have to respond to that many requests. But if that's the reality of where we are right now, I really think it just kind of makes sense over the long term to really think about it's just something that we have to do and we need to pay for it to ultimately save money and capacity down the line.
I will just say too, while we're here, so we have evolved the process of how we process public records. And so we have come a long way in making that process more efficient. We've done everything we can think of to streamline it. And it is just the sheer volume of requests that we are receiving that is what is taking so much time. And we didn't come to, like, the reason that Tanya is doing these records isn't because we just decided like that's who's going to do it. It's because there's literally nobody else to do it. And so somebody has to do it. And for the longest, for a large portion of the beginning of last year, that burden was on me. And it was completely unsustainable for my workload. And so I know exactly how Tanya feels because I was doing that. That was my life for the first half of the year. So I just wanted to make that clear that it's not like we are, just dumping that on Tanya, but it's, yeah, we're working the best we can.
Thanks, Evelyn.
I have a couple clarifying questions for Evelyn as well. It seems to me anecdotally, and I was further away from this issue at the time, but the amount of requests has really gone up just significantly in the last couple of years, right? So when Mary was full-time, this was less of a portion even of her work, right? She was accomplishing additional workload. And the other point I'd make is that the manager's office also shared Jane Aldergetty as a half-time admin assistant, where she'd provide office coverage, answer phones when people weren't around, and do things. A big project I pointed out in a couple meetings is she would produce the annual report, which literally was Jane's full-time workload for at least, I'd say, 6 weeks in December and half of January every year. And all that stuff has been absorbed with the loss of actually that position and a half.
Any other questions? I made people stay beyond our 8:30 break time. So if we're done with Evelyn for the moment, we can take our 10-minute break now and see you back here at 9 o'clock. Let's start up again. Just a little housekeeping question, and this is, I guess, mostly directed to you, Jim. I just got an email from Peter Kelman, who is the person who asked to take that consulting contract out of the consent agenda. And he just emailed me and said that he's heard enough. He doesn't feel a need to have it be on out of the consent agenda. So when we get to the consent agenda, we might put it back into the consent agenda unless you still want it out. So we've gone through these positions. The clerk wants to talk about his requested increase. So why don't we?
So I'll be just really fast. It's just that I'm in my little silo. You know, I do my weird little thing and I'm outside the regular city infrastructure. And in 13 years, I've never asked for more money and I put in a request for another $9,000. So just so you all know, it seems right that I should jump in and let you know. That's for surge staffing around elections, get folks in about, 3-4 weeks before elections because elections are getting more complicated. But mainly it's because of the staff reductions we've had to absorb in the clerk's office. I'm concerned about once we get into election crunch time, we get so many people coming in to vote early that we don't have enough folks in there to consistently manage the ballot requests with the regular business of the clerk's office. Also, this would be someone to help out on election day because I'm not doing elections that well. I live on the edge. There's a lot of things I should be doing differently to make it more efficient and having a little extra help there. So it's not just volunteers. And I already asked so much from volunteers. I have last general election, I think there were 73 volunteer slots I filled over the course of the month and election day. And I've squeezed out as much as I can from the free public there. But just so you know, that's what it's there for. Do with it what you will. It's bizarre to ask for more money. Haven't ever done it before, but there you go. If you have any questions? And if you all ever, while I've got the floor, you always have these, situations where, departments, you all are invited into departments to have conversations with the different departments or go on tour of the operations. I say I live in this silo, so I never get involved in that, but I don't want to seem cold and unwelcoming. Anytime you all want to just stop by and see what I do, feel free. It's not very interesting. It's very static. It doesn't really change year to year, but I don't want to be rude.
I come in and hang out sometimes. It's actually pretty interesting.
So I volunteer as a election volunteer before I got elected. So your office is doing great job. So I observe it and I really like that machine. They're so tall. And yeah, I hear you. And I really want to support you because it is so important for our democracy that your office is also functioning 100%. But from a volunteer perspective, I can say that you are doing great, so thank you. Thank you.
So just to assess where we are, thank you all. Does anyone else have questions of the clerk before we move on? To assess where we are, if we were starting from the level funding budget, these positions we talked about would be a 492,000 add to that budget. Is that right? And are people wanting to talk about whether we do that now, or where do you think we should go from here there, Sarah?
You guys should decide, not we, if you want to work up or down, like as a group, and that we can work from there. I do want to caution on the work up option just because I'm trying to be cautious in how I explain that too. It doesn't include a lot of essential increases based on experience, real experience, like the price of salt and all of those things, and so yes, we want to add back the staff. Yes, we want to add in the strategic plan items, but just, be cognizant that there are a lot of things that we are seeing operational increases for. They're real. The prices are high, the quantities are high, all of those things. And so it does set all of the departments a little bit of a disadvantage. They will need to figure out what has to go to live within that budget, or else you may see overruns in those accounts. And then, you will have a new manager who then can figure out what the next move for the city is within the budget that's been allotted to them. The other thing I just wanted to mention is that, every year the budget comes through with a 75 to 80% approval rating. And so that is unusually high. So just food for thought as you're thinking about what an appropriate rate increase is that you are already getting, resounding results, which could allow you to increase the tax rate more if you so chose to, and leave it up to the voters, whether they vote that up or down. But for food for thought. But if we could decide whether we're working up or down to start, and then we can start working through the ideas.
And I'm going to suggest, my suggestion is that we work down, because working down means we're starting from the budget submitted by the city manager. And I think that's a good place to be starting, because that's what the proposal was. And I'm willing to hear other ideas, but I think your idea supports that as a sensible way to go.
Yeah, I was part of the city manager's budget recommendation, so I can't say I'm not partial to starting and working top down, just because that was a responsible budget, for what we need to do and what the strategic priorities are. But I don't know if we just do a roll call up, down, who wants what, and then we start from, I don't know what the best way to get there is.
Okay, Jim. And you're muted. There we go.
Oh, I'm ready to go. Tomorrow I'm meeting with the loan fund committee. And I know they are going to say that we should raise that, or we're going to have people deciding to go out on the ballot on their own. So I just wanted to, I don't know if we've agreed on a figure, but I just want to give you a heads up that they feel that it stayed static for a while, and if you get a lot of people that go out on their own, get signatures, they're not going to ask for the same amount. So there's a heads up. And also I was at the homeless task force meeting today, and they're looking for 5,000 for outreach people who have to supply blankets on demand, or water, or get somebody to the hospital, that they're doing now on their own. And they said that, we looked and there's 10,000 allocated to the homelessness, and maybe they're thinking of maybe 5,000 of that should take care of the outreach people. So there's two things I just want to give you a heads up on.
Thanks, Jim. And when you say the community loan fund, you mean the community fund, the fund that gives out money to
Yes.
different good causes?
Yeah, I shouldn't have said loan. I should have just said community fund. We are meeting tomorrow at 9, and they did talk about last time that they don't feel it's going to be enough to keep everybody in line.
Okay, thanks. Ben.
Yeah, I just want to say, this is the first time I've done this, but I do agree with you, Jack, on the idea of working down, just in the sense of, like, we ask the city manager and the finance director to put together a recommended budget. And it feels like we should honor that, but then, like, work down from that, feels like to me.
All right, let's move forward with that. And Sarah, if I recall correctly, the additional positions that you listed are listed in order of what was determined to be priority. So if we were to cut your recommendation, Chris, would be to start from the bottom.
Yes.
All right, is there anyone who wants to propose to cut anything? Karen?
Okay,
Can I can try to give a less convoluted explanation of the spreadsheet if that would be helpful. I can't promise. It's a math problem. As I dove in, I remembered why. I'm always grateful nobody asked me to explain it.
You know,
so it's fine with me if, you know, maybe I call you later or something.
That's
and you
fine.
can tell me if,
let's handle it next week.
yeah.
Sounds great.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
sorry. You caught me off guard and I don't usually fumble like that, so I'm sorry.
Okay, so looking for things to cut, which is just, I understand why it's a good idea to approach it this way, but I don't like it, but okay. I have a couple questions. So one question is about the local options tax money. Now, I may be misremembering, but I don't remember that we as a council made a decision about future prioritization of that money. I remember we talked about how we wanted to spend this year's revenue, and that we were going to talk about sort of a longer term strategy. So I don't think we did that. Did I? Is that okay?
No, you did not do that.
So then I see that in the proposed budget, a big chunk of it goes to infrastructure kind of stuff, which I think is appropriate and goes along with kind of the spirit of where it started from. And then I have a question about the $100,000 into the downtown improvement reserve. So my question is, I'm not 100% sure what that is. I think it's attached to the DID tax, and this is just sort of backing it up, maybe. I don't know. I'm wondering how much is in it now. So if we put 100,000 more in, what effect does that have? And then where does anything else fund it? I mean, is it something that's currently funded, and how is it funded?
Yeah.
So would this be different, and how would it be different?
Yep. So I put up the decision point slide related to the strategic plan, which was really how we allocated that sales tax money, was to strategic plan items, to the infrastructure, and then 10% of the new local options tax would be to a downtown improvement reserve. And so Montpelier Alive gets their DID funding through that special tax rate. In addition, they get other funds that are raised through the regular municipal tax rate as part of their appropriation. I think that's about 39.1, but that's just from memory. So I can validate that. So this money, what the city was proposing was not necessarily that this 100,000 went to Montpelier Alive, that this 100,000 would be set aside and fund a reserve that lives with the city, and the city and Montpelier Alive and the businesses would all work and coordinate together to figure out what projects in the downtown we all support to improve the downtown. And so this 100,000 might not be enough to do what the businesses think is the most important in year one, but if it builds a reserve and they're getting another 100,000 or whatever 10% of that local options tax is, it allows them to do a downtown and welcome center or whatever it may be that's important to them. I did go meet with the businesses, and I think Zach has met with them too. They really feel strongly about investing in the downtown and bringing, making it more vibrant. And they all have a ton of ideas, and they're fantastic ideas. And I don't want to speak for Sarah, who maybe is not here anymore, but I know, they wanted 20%. And so that, just on their behalf, that was the ask, and we tried to find a way, given all of the pressures on all things, to help put money towards the downtown. And really this downtown improvement reserve can be looked at in ways of economic development as well, right? As we're investing in the downtown and bringing in new businesses and that. And so, the business community has a ton of really great ideas. So this 100,000 is not spoken for, but it is to help start that.
Okay, that makes sense. That's helpful. Just to follow up, sorry. Okay, just.
Well, let Carrie follow up and then.
You just flew right out. For the economic development. there's $50,000 for economic development. What is that? And maybe Palin needs to follow up more directly with the D.
Yeah, so that
But
50,000.
in addition to this, and where does that go? And how does it compare to this current year?
So this current year has no economic development money in it. In previous years, there was $100,000 annually of economic development money. That really is managed within the planning department. This $50,000 right now doesn't have anything specific tied to it, but it is an investment in strategic plan initiatives. And so that's where that came from. We wanted to be sure we were providing that investment.
Palin.
Oh, yeah. I just want to ask, because we are talking about local option sale tax, how do we allocate room and meals? Because we just like, 10% here, but
I don't think there was an initial allocation of the meals and rooms. It's just part of one of the other non-tax revenues that the city receives.
So it goes to what, capital? Where does it go?
It just goes into the general fund operating and covers within the general fund.
So can we do it with the local option sale tax, or we need to decide, 10% will go there, 50% will go there?
You don't need to. It would be wise to put some guardrails around this money, establish a policy at a future meeting once you get out of budget about what you would like to see, because you really you only get this bite at the apple one time at this new money. And so we can be strategic with it and make sure that it's staying going towards infrastructure and strategic plan items and the downtown reserve that keeps it from getting buried in the bottom line or used to reduce taxes in a future year, or, it's a very special chunk of money that you don't get often, and you want to be sure you protect that and use that wisely. Because, the alternative is you don't invest in those things, you get this new revenue, and that just buys down the tax rate. But that doesn't do anything good for anybody aside from buy down the tax rate in 1 year. And then the pressure still exists, and then you see a big increase in the next year.
Except it's going to be recurring.
You would still be getting it, but you would not have invested in all of that capital. And so you've got all of that deferred that's still there, still needs to be done. And now you've done away with this extra money.
So I think that's why we wanted to have that conversation and make that decision. But if we haven't done that, I don't want to lock us into that for the future by what happens to be in this budget. I think what I was thinking is fine, leave it with 100,000 for the downtown investment. Sorry, I'm not getting it right. And then we cut that 50,000 for that's generic economic development, because we are, I think, be using that $100,000. We're fulfilling our priority from our strategic plan of economic development. I mean, I feel comfortable that we're doing that. And so then I think we could take away that 50,000 that's additional economic development.
This is the first concrete suggestion for something to do. Well, not really, because you had some other concrete things. But
well, no, but that's
But how do people feel about saying we can live without putting the $50,000 in for economic development in this budget?
May I? It might be best if we work through everybody's cuts and then go back through and talk about them as a whole once you see
Fine.
where we land, but it's up to you.
Totally fine. Yeah. I can live with that. Do you have any other cuts that you want? Okay, great.
It's a really, really significant one. Hold on to your hat. The city council miscellaneous line is budgeted for $1,500. But last year we only spent 100 and some, and the year before that we spent about 500. And so maybe we could just budget 500, and we don't buy ourselves pizza all the times that we want to, or whatever that fund is going to.
Yeah, does anybody know what that
$1,000?
What we've done with that money?
Not off the top of my head.
That's so what?
That's what it's.
So what's the cut?
So let's cut 1,000 off and make it 500. That's my suggestion.
Can you what was the name of that line again?
city council miscellaneous.
Minus 1,000.
And it's at 1,500 right now.
Okay.
And I have one more question. There's an additional $4,000 for city council communications, which somewhere was labeled as Orca, I think. And so I'm just wondering, is that for expected increased use of Orca, or is it reflective of what Orca actually costs and we didn't budget enough, or?
So Orca has been very kind, and post-flood has not been charging us.
Oh, wow.
So this is putting that back.
Okay.
And we should put that.
We should definitely pay Orca. Yeah. Okay.
And is that all the cuts that you have?
Yes.
Okay.
For now.
Adrian.
Sorry, I'm fading here at this hour. I apologize. I don't know how much longer I'm going to survive, but I did have a very quick question. Looking at, I just wanted to a little bit of explanation about where was it? Sorry, I just had it. The transit center went from 47,000 to 80,000, and it said reflected actual costs for an additional $33,756. So I was just trying to figure out what was that increase for this year for our expenses?
Yeah, that's a great question. This is one we looked into, and it does still need further review. But we were, we looked back. The actual costs are legitimate and are related to like the lots and different things there. So I can't speak specifically, but we were trying to make sure that was covered. And I have staff currently that are digging back in to look at why such a big jump. But I don't have a great explanation for you now. But that was on my list of standout items as well. But I just couldn't in good conscience not budget knowing they were legitimate.
So we'll have more information next week.
Yes.
Great. Adrian, do you have anything else?
Yeah, I'll just jump back in. I mean, the budget, last year was obviously traumatic, and I think I'm still shell-shocked over our last year's process because it was really, really stressful. And, I think, we're like an in-between, right? So we hear what the staff need. We obviously hear that they're stressed. The morale's down. They want their positions back because, for obvious reasons we've just heard about for 2 hours. But then the constituents don't want their taxes raised. And so it is a very precarious position to be in. And I'm trying to think of ways to, better educate the public. So when I look at the taxes, it's, it's right on the screen. It's $370,000, which our house is appraised for more than that. So if I put this into like a real life scenario, my taxes would increase by, I don't know, like $60 a month or something like that. And Sarah, you're probably cringing at my math because I am not a mathematician. But we could afford that because me and my husband both work full time. And so that's fine. Okay, whatever, I'll suck up $60 a month. Sure. Because we want our city to be great and we want people not to be stressed. But then I start thinking about, well, what is Montpelier? Like, who are we? Like, do we want to, have, dual income families that are able to pay the highest amount of taxes in the state of Vermont? Is that what we're setting ourselves up for? Because there are folks in our town that are on a fixed income that absolutely cannot afford a $40, $50 a month increase. And so these are all the things that I'm weighing in my mind when I'm hearing the staff talk about we need our positions back, looking at the 11% increase, which will have a detrimental impact on some of our residents. But as Sarah said, 80% of the people always pass the budget anyway. So I think it puts, I'll speak for myself, it puts me in a very difficult position, just going through these lines, thinking about what can we cut? Because I think psychologically that's damaging. Like last year, we cut a lot of the budget and staff were pissed. Like, of course they were, because we cut, like, just to have that word cut from the budget, cut positions is a really detrimental way of looking at this. And I mean, I know there's no way around it, but I just don't know. I think we do have to continue to cut more. I don't know if the voters are going to have the stomach for this type of increase plus a school increase this year. That is just what I'm hearing from my constituents. And I would just hate to go back and have to redo the budget if it gets voted down, but like the school budget did last year. So I think I would like to push ourselves a little bit just to think bigger ticket items and just to get that percentage down a little bit more. You know, we are at a crossroads. We do have a new city manager coming in. So are there opportunities to maybe have not all those positions put back in, like the, you know, I'm just pulling up my phone, like the administrative assistant. I know, oh my God, Evelyn, I understand, like it is so painful to like not have that position, but maybe there'll be a way to like re-envision how departments are worked with a new city manager. Maybe that is Pollyanna thinking, but I think we need to have some more bigger ticket items in here rather than these smaller ones to get that percentage decrease. And I think just one more thing as I have the floor and before my fever starts kicking back in is the roads. We want the roads fixed. That's what we hear all the time. So focusing on the roads, focusing on that DPW streets department position, because if we're going to increase the budget for paving, I feel like it's a direct correlation to having another person so we don't have to use consultants. Like I am totally fine with that. But all the other positions, I don't know. I just feel like it's just really going to be a difficult year to pass this budget. That's what I'm hearing on the street. I've heard from the staff and it's not going to be easy. I'm just throwing it out there. That's where my mind is. I'm going to stop because I think I said enough.
Thanks, Adrian. Ben.
Yeah, I appreciate a lot of what you just said, Adrian. Like, I think about the fact that, you know, our budget did pass by 80%. And like this morning, I was like trying to Google, when's the last time a budget in Montpelier failed? And like ChatGPT couldn't answer that question. It's like, it's never failed. And yet having said that, like, I just really think about those residents that you're talking about, Adrian, that like $30 a month is actually a really big deal for some people that are living on fixed incomes. And so I think we really do have to, I mean, I can't support an 11% increase, you know, and I think we do need to look at some of the bigger ticket items. And again, what I'm trying to think about as a guiding philosophy are, what are the things that if we don't spend money on, we'll end up spending more money in the long run, right? And you know, you know, and I certainly don't want this to be personal about people or things like that, but I think about that administrative assistant, and again, to me, just the cascading effect of what happens of like our HR director not being able to fully do the job that we're paying her for, to be able to bring on the staff that reduces burnout and those kinds of things. Or similarly, I mean, when we're talking about the fire position and the police position, I mean, like basic public safety, right? And I'm, you know, like the chief's idea of like, do we have enough people that it's actually de-escalating situations that if we don't de-escalate them, that's going to cause, you know, more problems that are ultimately going to cost us. So anyway, I don't mean to ramble on it, but I hope that we can think about it in that way of like, what are the things that are going to save us money if we spend money on it now, but also just recognize there are some things that aren't kind of mission critical at this moment. You know, for example, like I'm definitely sympathetic to the planning department of wanting to increase the capacity, but, you know, to me, I wonder if in this budget cycle, is it a priority to you know, increase that position to scan documents? And I recognize the E911 thing's important, but I guess, I mean, if we got to get real here at some point about putting additional cuts, and I guess that's what I would offer that I think maybe we could look at increasing planning capacity in a future year.
Thanks, Ben. Do you have any other suggested cuts while you've got the floor?
You know, I don't. I'm curious to hear what others have to say, and am willing to keep looking.
Thanks, Ben. Jim.
Yeah, I'd like to cut that extra sidewalk out on East State Street and just fix what's there. It has not been a major problem. Yeah, we had 4 people come in and say, gee, we got to have this or that, but it's worked for years. And I'm fine with fixing everything that's there and redoing the whole street, but hearing that we don't have the people to plow sidewalks, just more sidewalk to plow, more sidewalk to maintain. It was quite a bump, if I remember right, if we just do the fix. So that's a spot where I think we can live without a full sidewalk on both sides. Yes, you'll have to cross the street every now and then. I don't see that as being the end of the world.
Thanks, Jim. Now that is capital.
Yeah,
So
that
question
is
is-
not in this budget.
Okay. That would be,
It would
that would
be.
come out of the
it would-
bond.
That will come out of the bond and it would be a future debt payment. And, I think that project is still evolving, but that any reduction there has no impact on this budget.
Well, what do we do with the extra money then that is saved from that?
That extra money was voted for by the voters for East State. So there is no use of that extra money. That extra money it goes towards the project or it doesn't. There's no reallocation.
So what could happen is that whatever the figure was for that extra sidewalk, which was around $1 million, something like that, 500,000, that would just be money that we don't take in the bond. And so we wind up borrowing $500,000 less for that project. And Sarah can probably tell us how much per year $500,000 less saves over the 20-year life of the bond.
I could definitely estimate that, but I cannot work that right now.
Right.
But yeah, and those bond payments, you won't see until a future budget as well.
Probably a couple of years because
those are we do have a bond currently for the first phase and a portion of the second phase of East State that we will be able to draw on. But I expect you'll be able to weigh in because I assume DPW will be back again related to East State. And that would be the time to cut that if that's so desired.
The engineering was going to be done and then they're going to come back for approval of the construction contract. All right. Thanks, Jim. Do you have anything else to suggest at this point?
Not at this point.
Okay, thanks. Helen.
Yeah, so I am also favor of economic development budgeted item 50,000 because there are no specific explanation how we will use it. So it is okay by me. All the feedback I've heard or input I've heard from people in my district and other districts. There is no way I can support proposed increase. So I will be just like listening and trying to see how we can go if we can find any solutions. And I was planning to ask this question in our department head meetings, but I will just throw it here. So some of the departments, they don't ask addition or restoration. I just want to hear their reasons. Maybe we can use some of their rationale to apply to other departments. I know they are apples and oranges. We cannot compare them, but I was just like curious why they chose that path, because I know everything is difficult for everyone. So I'm just like leaving this question to all of us.
Yeah, and I can speak a little bit to how our budget process worked, right? We're in front of you guys a lot, trying to share information. We were meeting internally, we know there's a lot of pressure. We know that there's no interest in increasing the taxes by 11%. It pained us to present this to you, but that was the cost to do business as we do business today. And so with the restored positions or not restored positions, right, we met collectively, we talked about it, while at the bottom of the list is that admin assistant to the city manager, and the one that keeps getting talked about, I think collectively as a group, and I'll speak on behalf of myself, but I think the rest of them would agree, not having that position is a huge detriment to the city manager's office and all departments. And so, we all collectively thought that was a good position to put back. It wasn't, and we knew we couldn't put back everything. And so we tried to get to a place where we could do business as we're doing business today, that the community expects. And then you guys need to tell us what we do less of, because this is the cost.
Yeah.
So I was hoping that there was a button you could push that would generate the report that I needed, which was to show me the things that what the increases were without all the items in between.
No,
So I did that. But it sounds to me like what you're saying is that is all of this based on your actual increases? Or, for example, professional services audit is up from 49,000 to 55.
Yep.
Where does that $6,000 come from?
The contract and the fact that we need a single audit. All of these are tied to real things. Either like departments were asked to go back. I'm trying to find back through their budgets. I made everybody this year, especially provide. So I went through all the departments. It's thinking about it. In one of the slides related to decision points and operations and what's in, you can see all of the increases by department. And I've got notes next to them, related to what they are, and what's driving those different costs. And we can break it out in more detail, but the reality is that there are contracts or increased prices or, Kurt, how much did the price of salt go up? Like 12%. So even the amount budgeted in that city manager's budget is $30,000 less than we need to do that. So we did this exercise. We didn't come to you with a budget full of wants. So we came with a budget full of needs. And what we need you to do is to tell us what.
Well, I'm thinking, the alternative to cutting positions or not restoring positions is to nickel and dime ourselves.
Yeah, it's the level fund and add those 4 positions back. That's how you get those in.
So, like tech services, it's up like 12. There are 3 lines that are up $12,000 altogether. Basic services for telephone, internet, wide area network, and city website expense, for example. And the contract based on, right?
Yes.
Okay.
This is not fun.
Hopefully it's K, yeah. City Hall professional services, 15,000 to 25,000.
Cleaning contracts and repairs.
That's under City Hall maintenance. Is that what that is?
Yep.
Building repairs, 18 to 25. I mean, it's 1,000, 5,000 here, 5,000 there.
It's an incredibly difficult exercise, I can tell you, because I took my best stab at it and was able to get us down to the 11%, which was why we then gave you the second option, which is, if you want to level fund, departments will have to figure out how to live within and what does and doesn't get done. But then you would be able to add back the positions that you were so inclined to, or strategic plan items you were so inclined to, so we're in the bad ideas section of budget time. Right,
yeah.
Makes me a little sad. I volunteered to come back and help.
Well, we've got some, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so I checked the survey results, like very detailed, like really did so many different perspective analysis. So, and I'm very happy to see that you really, when I say you, like all the people on the team consider that input. So what I don't see, like the difference between the survey results and the proposed budget is only planning department and the city assistant to city manager admin position, which we need that, right? So it is okay. I know these are all needs. And when we make comments about the city staff suggestion, it is not that we don't understand you or we don't trust, because we hear the other side of the conversation too. So sometimes, although it is all needs, sometimes we have to postpone our needs to, like, I need a pair of boots, but if I cannot afford to buy a pair of boots this year, then I have to go with my old one. So most of the things I hear from public, because of all the things that are happening to them, they cannot afford a new pair of boots. So that's the tension, and I don't know how to solve it. But yeah, when I see the proposed budget, I understand. Yeah, it is coming from the survey result. It is coming from all the difficult or challenging situations we had last year. But I hope we can find a solution, because we might need to postpone our needs this year. I hope we don't have to, but we will see.
Yeah, I don't think any of us expected, right, that an 11% budget would be what you all adopted. But it was the staff recommendation. And now that's been handed over to you. And so the budget that will go before the voters is your budget. And so, we will do whatever we need to get to a place that you guys are good with. Do others have cut items so I can at least register them in the sheet?
Well, I've been listening to what people have said, to think about what, where are people coming from, what can be a combined package. And not everyone has said that they want to do all of these things. No one has said they want to do all of these things, but if we cut the administrative assistant, cut economic development, cut the increase of Meredith's job, and cut the $1,000 for the city council, that's $197,000. That's about 1.5 cents, or that's about 1.5%. So that gets us to just under 10. Yeah.
9.5. Yep.
So we're going to start having public hearings. My suggestion is that's what we do for the council budget, and wrap it up tonight and do that. And I wonder if people.
Sorry, Jack, I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying. Like, I'm looking at the spreadsheet right now.
Yep. And Sarah has just plugged in those figures.
Yeah, I think so. Given that we're headed to 10 o'clock, I think we've had really good discussions. I think, we do have to vote through a budget that goes into the warning next time. You can still adjust it then. I think, really great homework would be to come back with the lists, everybody's lists of cuts, and then we I'll give the presentation for the budget, and then we can start working through that because I expect there will be additional reductions. So I think you can either vote through, as a placeholder purposes, you can vote through the city manager budget that was presented and let it sit there for this discussion again, and I'll keep this running spreadsheet with the list of the reduction ideas, or we can make, start with this reduction, put that on the warning and move. But either way, we'll end up in the same place, whatever is your pleasure. But next week, we've got to come with the cut lists and really do some work on this budget.
And I can't make a motion. So if someone thinks that that's a decent place to be for right now, Carrie.
Yeah, I don't want to make this motion either, because it includes the city clerk's budget, but But I like your suggestion. I would like it if we came out of tonight with a version of the budget that makes those cuts that we identified. And then if we need to make more or want to make more or change anything in the future, we can. But I would like to go ahead and
do that.
and do a reduction tonight. Yeah.
Ellen.
So I have a question and I'm thinking and talking to people about changing the suggested additions and restoration. Is there any way departments will be okay not having full-time, but half-time restoration? Or it has to be like a full-time? Can we go with, I'm just like making a brainstorming, like 75.75 firefighters. I just like pick your department. Is there any option to, or we have to say, okay, we want to cut all this line full-time? This line item.
For most of it, it's a value add proposition and an ability to find someone to do that job. It's very difficult to fill a part-time role. And at a 0.75, you're paying for their benefits anyway. So you might as well be utilizing them as a full-time employee. It's like, we did look at what part-time help would be. I think at one point, before my time, before Derek's time, there was a call force and part-time firefighters, and that helped supplement the gap. And then they disappeared, right? Like those people just don't exist anymore to do it in that capacity, or we would try.
So second question, again, brainstorming, right? Can we think about, I know this is not ideal, it's just try to find a middle ground, like hire full-time person, but that full-time person will serve for 2 departments. Like we will hire full-time, but like my job, like there's a 10% you will do this, 50% your position has to do this, 40%, like, can we just do it? And again, I trust your recommendation. I trust that you need this. This is not versus us to you. I really appreciate all your work before coming to us. But I just want to see what are our options, because after this meeting, I will go and explain this to District 2 people. So can we just do something like that?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the positions that were added back into this budget, just let me pull this up again. Some of them are very job specific, right? The police officer, the firefighter, the DPW person. And so, those aren't going to be shared across departments. And with the admin assistant to the city manager position, that's now not in there, that one was one that is shared across all departments. And so, that's already, baked into that, what that job is. And we do that with a ton of positions within the city already. As Evelyn mentioned, the DPW admin, is helping, planning is helping as well. We are trying to share all of the resources and find any available capacity that lives within, to try to not increase the spend.
Yeah. So thank you. Just want to highlight.
Let me speak to that point too, Evelyn, please. So as Evelyn mentioned, the idea that has been discussed is making the admin also an IT person. And Sarah, can you shed light on the fact, would having in-house IT like that give us an opportunity to renegotiate our contract with Simple Root and maybe have some savings there as well?
I do think that that's possible. Before my time, there were 2 in-house IT staff, and that eventually got phased into 1 and then phased into a contract service that was overseen by the finance director. My background is in accounting and in IT. So that was, luck, right? So, I've been good at this because that, my very strange, passionate skill set. But most finance directors are not IT experts. And to be honest, IT is a huge headache. And, given the level of work that the finance director has to do, having IT as part of it is just a Awful, it's awful. You know, that was the biggest bane of my existence when I tried to take a day off, was all of a sudden nothing worked. And I had to come back and pull cords. And, you know, to have somebody on site to be able to do that again would be huge. It's just tricky when you try to balance all of the services and there's no guarantees. Because one person in-house, given the size of the city and the complexities of our system, also doesn't work. Because nobody's going to have that very wide skill set. You would still need outside help. And a big portion of our IT contract too is updating for deferred purchases and equipment and failing IT. So there's a whole host of things, but for the next finance director's sake, I would advocate that, you know, tech not land on them. But it's how it has been, and you know, it's livable. The firm is really good. You know, so there's that.
Jim.
Yeah, one area that I just thought of is we don't have anybody in planning that can do grants or RFPs or anything. And when I was in the past, they brought in money in ways that paid salaries. I mean, when Gwen was the planning director and Valerie was the planning director, they wrote grants, and nobody's doing that in planning. And, you know, I'd like to know, what are we paying consultants to do this for us for? Because, and if so, can we educate somebody there to be able to write grants? Because
Jim, Matt is doing that now, right? The community and economic
no,
development.
he told me he doesn't write grants.
Huh.
Well, you know, the planning department has, you know, gotten us a ton of grants. They are definitely still writing grants. To be honest, about grants in the city, you know, we have a ton of grants, and grants require a very special skill set. And given the volume and the federal regulations and the reporting requirements and all of the things that go along with them, what the city really also needs, in addition to all of the other things that's not in here, is a full-time grants person. We don't have that, so that falls on all departments and then the finance department as a whole. And so I could list for days the things we don't have and could, but that's just the reality. And there aren't many grants that pay people's salaries. That just isn't, you know, we are not out looking for grants that cover a short-term day-to-day operating costs, because eventually those go away and then you have to, you've got staff. You don't use one-time grant money to pay people because it just does you a disservice in the long run. So, you know, the grants we're going after are for infrastructure and economic development and housing. And, you know, while they're not going to pay somebody's salary, they're going to do great things for the city. And so those are the trade-offs. And with the capacity.
Let me tell you something that does work. Nonprofits are generally paid a lot by grants. I sat on 4 boards, and the people who wrote grants, they operated every year on grants, and they seemed to manage to make it work. And I remember when we had people in the planning that wrote grants. I mean, yeah, you say we are having grants done, but are they done by consultants or are they done in-house? And we have 5 people that work in that office, and I can't believe we don't have one person that's capable of writing grants.
Well, I can tell you that, for instance, the Department of Public Works has written down millions of dollars in the cost of some of the capital projects we've done by going out and getting grants.
Yeah, all departments are getting grants. Planning, DPW, police, like everybody is going out and getting grants to cover some of this work. We are looking for every avenue to save the taxpayers' money and find grant money.
There may be more we could do, but I think that's a legitimate thing to look at. But to say we're not going after grants just isn't the reality.
Well, I mean, are we going after grants with in-house people or consultants? There's a difference.
In-house people.
Yeah.
Well, that isn't what we heard from Kurt today. I mean, he said that we'd like, we can't administer some of these grants. We can't really handle them.
Well, there's also a fine line with staff capacity as well, right? We can only manage so many projects at one time. Also, all of these grants are reimbursement basis. And when you're trying to manage cash flow and the operating needs of the city and the, reduced fund balance that we have, you can't just go after every grant. You have to strategically go after the grants and time them with our projects. And so that's what we're doing. We're not continuing to seek grants when we don't have capacity to do the work or the cash flow to be able to support those projects. So I don't think it's that we're not going after them. I think it's that we're being strategic about them. And then we have experts within every department who are writing grants.
So we have both Zach and Mike who are prepared to answer. Zach, why don't we?
Yeah, Zach with the DPW. Sarah just said everything that I was going to say. The specific grant that I think Jim is talking about was a small highway safety grant, which we were based on all of the changes and everybody moving during this transition plan. This is just the reality of we don't know if we can manage the grant and do it the way that we need to do it. It's not that we don't want to. Every time we find a grant that is useful, we are going after it. Hands down, like we are constantly looking for new money and going after those. And it's to the point that we are putting a huge burden, more than probably we should, on our own plate to manage these, because we know that those dollars are so crucial to this town and we have so many things to do. So anytime that we can get those grants, we do. And I have never had anyone else write a grant for me. Most of our grants in our department are done internally.
Thanks, Zach. Mike.
Mike Miller, planning director. So yeah, I mean, we do a lot of grants, and yes, Matt does a lot of grant writing. I mean, we just were awarded $3 million. That was a grant that I wrote a couple of weeks ago for Northern Borders. So we do a lot of grants. There have been recently some special cases where, in order to apply for disaster recovery funds, ACCD, the Agency of Commerce and Community Development, requires you to have an outside grant writer to go and work with you. So in that case, we did hire a grant writer, but that's the only grant writer in my 11 years that I've ever hired. We do. It's also important to understand there are three pieces that go to any grant. So you've got grant writing to get the grants. That's sometimes the easiest piece. The second piece is the grant administration once you have it, and that's making sure those pieces like Davis-Bacon are taken care of, and Buy American, and the bid process meets the federal or state requirements, and so there's the grant administration pieces that go along with it. And then there's the third piece, which is the project management, which is actually doing the work. And a lot of the planning projects, if we get planning grants, it's to hire a consultant to do the planning work. But these projects, these grants can be more complex or less complex. And, certainly DPW would tell you about the transportation grants. Some of them aren't worth getting unless they're $300,000 or $400,000, simply because the amount of overhead that's required to administer them is burdensome. And we do try to help out. We work across departments. We used to be a lot easier when DPW and planning were across the hall from each other, but we do try to coordinate as much as we can to help each other out when we find grants. Josh was a really good grant writer. And Matt, we've just gotten him on board. He helped write the DR applications, and he's working on an economic development grant right now that's either $5 to $10 million. So we've gotten our millions, people, different times have different projects and different things. In some cases, we're doing sponsoring grants. So like a Down Street project would be a project that we're going to be doing the grant administration for, but they do most of the grant writing for. So French's Block and the Transit Center, those were grants that the planning department administered, but were really operated mostly through Down Street. But we are the sponsors for a lot of those projects.
Thanks, Mike. Folks, I'd like to move us forward to the next step. And
I'm gonna ask somebody to make a motion that nobody's gonna be happy with. But I would ask somebody to make a motion to approve the manager's proposed budget with the exception of the city clerk's office with the $197,000 in cuts that I laid out. Figuring that would go forward to next time and we'll work on it. Is someone, Helen?
So what if we don't agree all the lists? I wanna see the last item. I don't wanna cut this. So it was. So how, for example, another person don't like that I suggested economic development. So we should just go.
Well,
Is it, I'm just like asking like.
Yeah.
Because we will change in the end, so it will not hurt
At
the final decision.
So yeah, I mean, you don't have to agree with all of these things. I think it's a great starting place, you know, that it shows there's been some movement, you know, at the next meeting, you know, hopefully everybody comes back with their cut lists and or add back lists, right? You know, depending on where we want to land. But if you wanted to add that back, you could put it on the list, make the motion, everybody votes on it. And we can just go line by line at that point, if that would be easiest. But there's still the opportunity.
So it will be like a temporary.
Yeah,
This is a placeholder.
Placeholder, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm willing to make that motion. If I can remember it, I move that we pass the recommended budget from the city manager, removing the section from the city clerk, removing the portion of the city clerk salary or department, and these items totaling 196,248,000.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Folks, I want to, there are still some people who are members of the public who are out there, and I want to see if anyone wants to be heard, recognizing that we will have 2 public hearings before we have a final budget. Okay, I'm going to call the roll. I think you all know what the motion is. So, Adrian?
Yes.
Ben?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Helen?
Yes.
Sal?
Yes.
All right, that motion carries. Now we need a motion to approve the city clerk's portion of the budget.
No way.
I guess you're retired,
So
John.
we'll move to I will move to approve the city clerk's portion of the budget.
As proposed, yep. Okay,
As proposed in the city budget.
Second.
All those in favor, and you're
I
abstaining.
just want to make a point that I'm abstaining because I have a conflict of interest here.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. We are ready to move on to our public hearing next week, but also to the next item on the agenda. Thank you, everybody. We know it's never, the budget is never easy because we have never had a year where we say, yeah, we've got more money than we need. So thank you. Now, the consent agenda is before us. I don't know if you all caught what I was saying earlier, but Peter Kelman was the person who requested that we take the consulting services.
I take it off. I take my motion away.
Okay, everybody happy with, the chair would entertain a motion to adopt the pass the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we have no other business, and the way I've got this set up, we have council reports, mayor's report, clerk's report, manager's report, and then I anticipate going into executive session to consult with our consultant on the proposed city manager's contract, which
hard to know how long that's going to take, but I anticipate coming out of executive session, but not taking action at that point. We'll see. So council reports. Start with the people online today. Adrian.
Nothing for me.
Yeah, you're too sick to do anything. Ben.
I just want to thank the department heads for the meeting that we had yesterday. I guess it was yesterday. Adrian and I met with them. I know other counselors are going to do that as well. I thought it was a really great dialogue, and there was a lot of back and forth that was very informative. And the other thing I wanted to say, I'm embarrassed that it took me this long to do it, but the other night my son and I went for a walk with our dog on the bike path by Shaw's and finally went on the bridge with the light installation over it. And it's spectacular. It's just really, really cool. If anybody hasn't gone over that bridge at night, you should check it out. It was really beautiful. And thanks to Montpelier Live for doing that.
Thanks, Ben. Jim?
I just want to say, with all the sickness going around, I'm going to pass on being part of the photo. It's just not worth it to me to be on the back of a page with my health conditions.
Okay, good to take care of yourself. Carrie.
Yeah, I hope a couple of things. So the housing committee met recently, and one of the things that they're working on priorities and possible recommendations to the city council. And one of the things that they've been talking about is the idea of a vacant building permitting process. Sometimes referred to as a vacancy tax, but it's not actually a tax that they're talking about. And this is an idea that has, in all the time that I've been part of the housing committee, a number of years, has been sort of on the list of things to consider and talk about. And so we heard from some member of the public who'd done a lot of research on this. Matt in the planning department has also done a lot of research on it. And the committee is interested in exploring this further. But we want to bring it to city council before we spend a lot of time on it. So I'm not asking you for any kind of decision right now. I'm just letting you know that this is on the table. And if you have thoughts about any aspect of it, you should let the housing committee know what your thoughts are, and then we'll figure out our next steps.
Would you like to get it on the agenda for a meeting in February after we've done the budget, or do you want to see it?
I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure about the timing yet. Yeah. So
I noticed there's a bill in about that too. I think it's a short form bill, so there's not much to it, but
yeah,
we're not the only people who are interested.
Right. And no, I have a couple more things.
Okay, sorry.
I haven't gotten mail at my house for a really long time, and I've been checking the mail every day because my brother's supposed to send me something, and I've been reading on Front Porch Forum. Obviously, the people aren't getting their mail. No one in my neighborhood's gotten mail. This isn't a new problem. I'm sure many people listening have not gotten their mail for many times, but it's been pushing 2 weeks now, and something has just sort of popped in me, and so I've been starting to send in the official complaints and figure out who to talk to and everything. And I realized that I had just completely gotten used to it. Sometimes we were getting mail once a week for a while there, maybe twice a week. And it's not okay that we're just used to it. So I'm not really sure what to do about that, but I kind of want to put it out there that if other people are interested in combining our voices and really trying to speak up about getting something done about this, I would welcome that. And then the final thing is that I do want to let people know that I am running again for my seat in March. So
great.
That's it.
Helen.
So I've been receiving several emails about last year's Article 13 on the ballot. And I just want to publicly say that I've tried to learn what we could do as a city council. Nobody is saying that we can stop people's democratic rights. So everybody has a right to put things on the ballot based on our bylaws. So if they collect enough signature, but some of our committee members are being felt threatened and not comfortable seeing the language. But apparently we cannot do anything about it. And then there might be same language, same request on the ballot this year too. So I reached out to John and he was very helpful. I don't know if he wants to explain more, but legally we cannot do anything about it if people collect enough signatures to put the same text with the same language on our ballot. Thanks.
Thanks, Helen. So,
No report.
mayor's report. When I first came to the council almost 8 years ago, my primary interest was to continue my decades-long advocacy for housing. When I got here, I found that the range of chances to do good for my community was broader than I ever expected. During my time here, I had faced what must be an unprecedented concatenation of opportunities and challenges. In the early years, when people across the country and here in Montpelier were arguing to defund and abolish the police, the council took that opportunity to create a commission on which I served to review the operations and performance of our police department and to create policies that have furthered the progressive and inclusive values of our community. Working with our volunteer tree board, we have led the state in our response to the emerald ash borer crisis. We passed and secured legislative approval for non-citizen voting to allow all members of our community a say in what their government does. We passed a local option sales tax to help support the financial viability of our city. And most recently, I've worked with other Vermont mayors to try to heal the divisions that the Trump administration has caused between Vermont and our neighbors in Quebec. In 2020, Montpelier was subjected to the worldwide pandemic, which sent our city workers home and our revenues down. Working with our city staff, the council was able to maintain government functions and essential public services while making responsible but painful budget cuts that preserved a sound financial footing for our city government. When the opportunity came before us to acquire the Country Club Road property for housing, recreation, and environmental preservation, I supported that decision, as did a majority of our voters. We continue to make progress, and I believe future generations will thank us for what we did. Finally, just over 2 years ago, we were hit by a devastating flood. I worked with our city employees who managed the volunteer efforts at the hub, met constantly with our city manager, assistant city manager, and department heads on site to ensure that the work of thousands of volunteers would be targeted and effective. Our city employees and the volunteers who serve on the Montpelier Commission for Recovery and Resilience are continuing their great work to bring back our damaged city facilities and move forward with downtown recovery and improvements. I'm proud of how our city has handled these many challenges and the role I played in leading our community through incredibly difficult times. After the town meeting day elections last year, I knew that I had to pursue two paramount goals: continue to make progress on housing at Country Club Road, and find a replacement for the city manager who would serve the city with distinction, integrity, and professionalism for 30 years. I'm glad to say that with the grants we've received and the developers we've chosen to work with, we are closer than ever to housing at Country Club Road. I am also glad to say that we are close to a final agreement with our next city manager. This has been a tremendous effort. In recent years, I and other members of the community have noticed that the tone of public discourse has become ugly and toxic. While we actively encourage public participation, the unfounded personal attacks, often based on misunderstandings, willful ignorance, and outright misrepresentations on elected officials, city employees, and even community volunteers, have poisoned the public dialogue, discouraged participation, and hampered progress toward important goals. Our community deserves excellent leaders, and this type of toxic discourse is discouraging great people from stepping up to serve our community. It divides us when we have so much more in common and so much good we can accomplish when we come together. We can and must work to ensure we have civil and constructive discourse for the benefit of our whole community. I am no longer willing to subject myself to what has become more a chore than an enjoyable challenge. Consequently, I will not be running for re-election to this office in which it has been my honor to serve. I offer my encouragement and support to those who are ready to take their place in city government and call on the community to step up to build a better culture of collaboration so that a small handful of people stop staring people down, but instead more people step up to take on today's immense challenges with grace, humility, and optimism. Thank you. City Clerk's report.
Thank you both. I'll very well said.
Thank you.
Just to follow up really quick on the discussion of or what Pamela brought up about the ballot, I'm not even sure what to call the ballot, but the one focused on Israel and in terms of apartheid, however it's phrased. I did look into it. The legal history in the state is that under state law, if a ballot item is deemed irrelevant or immaterial somehow to the city, that it can be rejected by the legislative body, by the council or the select board or whatever. Ours is more hardwired in the charter. And there are a couple other court cases I asked our attorney to look into, one involving a charter town, Burlington, and then another one actually involving a very old case in Montpelier, actually. And he continues to be of the opinion that you all would not have the power to keep something like this off the ballot, that if something comes in and meets the signature threshold, then it's going on the ballot. And that's, yeah, I dug as much as I could on that, but that seems to be where it landed. So if you all have any questions about that, feel free to ask me.
The ironic thing is that, and you didn't mention this, but the ironic thing is that the case involving the city of Montpelier was from back in 1992. And I was actually the lawyer who sued the mayor and council in that case, and we got an injunction requiring something to be put on the ballot. And now here I am on the other side of the table.
Yeah, I was going to let you break that news.
Yeah. City manager's report.
First, I'd say thanks for your years of service, Jack. You've really given a lot to the community, and it means a lot. And hopefully, someone your equal steps up to take your place.
Thank you.
Really hopeful for the city. I'd like to kind of hold up the really good progress we made on the budget today as an example of a really great collaboration. Right, this is the toughest time of the year, and they're really hard choices that staff makes ahead of time, and then council has to make hard choices as well. And I think this went as well as this could, and it's encouraging. And we as staff want to just keep building on this momentum and really work together and really try and set the table for our new permanent city manager to come into the best landscape that they can walk into. And I think, as mentioned, we want to prioritize kind of filling our vacancies and building capacity to the best of our abilities. I'll let you know that the basement shelter space is ready for occupancy. They were doing some final dusting and cleaning in there today. And the extreme cold weather group is going to start moving in this week. They don't anticipate activating the shelter because of warm temperatures right now. And in the model that this will allow, then the permanent shelter will still house 18 beds or 15 beds, I think, and they've seen a few more people than that there, but right now they're predicting a fairly low overflow on the really cold nights into City Hall, maybe less than a half dozen people or something like that on the cold nights. but that project went well. It's a little bit, I think it's going to come in a little bit under the $20,000 budget, and we're expecting 15,000 to be reimbursed from the cold weather group. So good to have that done.
Amazing work to get that done, Chris. Yeah. All right, next up, discussion of city manager contract terms. This is to keep moving forward on hopefully finalizing the terms of an offer to the expected new city manager. We would entertain a motion, and I think this is a two-step motion. One, I would entertain a motion that the council find that premature disclosure of information would put this city at a decided disadvantage in the contract negotiation. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And next, is there a motion to go into executive session with our consultant Ian Coyle? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Okay, thanks. We can go out of this room, go into executive session. Department heads, you don't need to stick around because we're not going to do anything to you when we get back.